Meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands are an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Bush? Here. Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Eke?
Yeah.
Commissioner Rollins is absent. Commissioner Wingert?
Here.
Vice Mayor Alsager?
Here.
Mayor Perschbacher?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum, so we are going to continue on with our meeting. We're going to move into proclamations and presentations. Our first is an introduction of a new water distribution operator.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce to you our most recent addition to our water distribution team, Tucker Breezeboys. He started as a water distribution operator December 21st of last year. Tucker comes to us from the village of Merrill, where he gained experience in all of their DPW's responsibilities, including water, wastewater, and street maintenance. Prior to that, he was a youth development worker for the Midland Juvenile Care Center. And also prior to joining us, Tucker received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Lake Superior State University. Please join me in welcoming our new employee to our staff and wishing him much success here at the city.
All right, we're going to move on to a presentation on the Aquatic Center.
I can put my computer up too.
No, it's not projecting. That's Chris.
There it is.
Looks like it's coming together. Okay.
No, I emailed it to you. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
also had to type in that very long password more than a few times. So. There we go.
Needing to know.
I mean, like, I'm not aware if they're having that. I'm not aware of that. I've talked to them, they haven't mentioned it, they just open house. No signal.
So we should be able to just go.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think when I went last year, I got there around 6, I wanna say, and it was just the open house.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. My name is Lisa Diaz-Seitzema. I've been here before, but I'm happy to be back, and thank you for having me back. Today, I want to give you really the update on the Aquatic Center and where we are, and a little more detail to help all of you and the citizens that you represent to have the knowledge and facts about the Aquatic Center. So let me kick off and again review how we got to this point. In August of 2018, this initiative really started as a community initiative. It started by community volunteers coming together and realizing with the closure of Rose Pool that we were lacking an opportunity for many aquatics opportunities in this community. That group in 2018 raised money and contracted with a national aquatics group, this Isaac Sports Group, to do a feasibility study of our community. The goal was to say, we did not want to move forward with a project or an initiative if the need wasn't here in the community and that it wasn't a sustainable model for a community pool. And so that was our foundational place that we started. From there, in 2020, we came as community volunteers to Union Township, the City of Mount Pleasant, and the Mount Pleasant School Board, and we asked you all to form the Mid-Michigan Aquatics Recreation Authority. From there, in 2021, the board was appointed, 2 members from the city, 2 members from the township, and 1 member from the school district. And I want to pause there real quick and say to you, congratulations and great job on your appointments. You appointed John Zhang to the board, who's our board chair, and John was previously your Director of Public Works here for the city, so has had a tremendous amount of value to add to our group, especially as we did facility and infrastructure planning. And you all probably didn't know this at the time, but we've learned this since. John was also a competitive swimmer and water polo player and ran pools, both facility and all the components and infrastructure of pools. So really great appointment. The other appointment you made was Judy Wagley, and Judy is with Public Broadcasting, an avid swimmer, and previously had served on a recreation aquatics board in another community. So I just want to give you great appointments to this group. They have brought great expertise to our committee. In 2021 or 2022, the feasibility study, really 2022 and 23, we went back and looked at the feasibility study, mostly focusing on the financial projections. Lots had changed, and so we wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information in our financial projections. So here's where we've landed. This is the design of the aquatics facility. I want to be clear that the design of it was focused on 2 things. 1, the demand. Could we meet and how would we meet the demands in the community? And 2, that it was a sustainable business model. Those were 2 critical pieces, and that is what's landed us on this design. So you'll see on the right-hand side of this drawing, the darker blue is what's called a 25-yard stretch pool. So on the right-hand side of that blue are 8 lanes across and 25 yards to that red line in the middle, which is a movable bulkhead. On the other side of that is what's called the stretch part, and that's 4 lanes going in the other direction. So lots of different opportunities, and on the far end on the right side are going to be 2 diving boards as well. So this is a deep water pool and has the ability to do competitive programs, but also tons of recreational programs can be housed in this particular body of water. The lighter gray part to the left where you see warmer water therapy teaching pool, this is a warmer body of water. It will be used for teaching and therapy, rehab. You can see there's some lanes there. Those are both for lap swim or for walking. And then you see that like bean-shaped part at the top. That's called a therapy channel. And it allows the water to be turned up or down for resistance, again, allowing for the walking, the rehab elements of the facility. Both of this and the whole design, and there's 500 seats for stadium seating, 400 participant seats on the pool deck as well. There's a community space, there's locker rooms. The whole design was all based around the need in the community and the sustainable business model. If we were to have built a 6-lane, 25-yard pool, yes, it would have been much more cost-effective to build. However, it would never have been in a sustainable business model. And that was really key on why we've landed on this model. The number of user groups that can use this facility at one time makes this model a sustainable business model. And we've already studied the demand and had letters of intent from user groups, so we need to know already a number of the groups that will use it and how it will be used. And so that is really what's driven the structure of it. So what it can be used for, and I'm going to go over this a little more detail, but we've got everything from swim lessons to senior programs to open lap swim to therapy and rehab, PE with the schools, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and just unlimited amounts of recreation, scuba, kayaking, paddleboarding, unlimited. So I want to talk about Learn to Swim. We in this community have very limited opportunity for Learn to Swim, and yet we are the Great Lakes state, and we have lots of water around us. So this is one of our main focuses that we talk about with the Aquatic Center. We will have swim lessons from birth to adult, and everything between. Additionally, our first priority of an MMARA for fundraising, once we get through the operational startup, is to do a 3rd grade Learn to Swim program with the local schools. We are modeling this after other aquatic centers, and we believe giving kids the opportunity to not just have this health and wellness opportunity, but really the life-saving opportunity is really important. So we are going to commit that we're really going to advance the Learn to Swim in our community. Recreation, I talked to you about that. There are just limitless opportunities for recreation using the Aquatic Center. Aquatic fitness, again, we have a very small ability to do aquatics fitness right now because we're very limited on our access to water with the SAC, because the SAC was built to be a recreation pool for the university. And so there's very limited opportunity right now. However, with the Aquatic Center, there would be just a tremendous amount of opportunity to do aquatic fitness in our community, not just for the seniors, for all age groups. Rehab therapy and special needs programs, we have heard and have letters of intent from a number of therapists that want to use the community pool for just that, rehab and therapy. We also have a number of doctors that have signed on in support, again, talking about the need for this for their patients. We know that there's great opportunity and a lot of need around here. Competitive aquatics, when Pacers, which was the age group swim program, closed in 2018 because of the closure of Rose Pool, we had 150 kids in Pacers. We have no age group swimming program now. And so this will bring the opportunity to bring this back, and we see this growing tremendously. Additionally, the high school right now has a girls program, a girls swim program. The program has to operate basically out of Alma because we have no deep water and there's no pool where they can hold events or even practice starts because there's not deep enough water at the SAC to do that. So they have to travel to Alma for all their meets and most of their practices. Where is it going to be located? So it is going to be located just north of the high school soccer fields off of Preston Street. This is Mount Pleasant Public School District land, and they have gifted it to the Recreation Authority for the use for the Aquatic Center. What we love about this property is that it is sidewalk accessible. So anybody in the city will be able to ride their bikes and walk to the Aquatic Center. It is located just north of the high school, so great access for students to access the Aquatic Center, and just centrally located in our community for the use and access for our community. So what we're asking taxpayers and community members in the city of Mount Pleasant, Union Township, and the Mount Pleasant School District, those are the 3 districts or the 3 areas that will be able to vote on this initiative, is we are looking at a total project dollar right now of $23.5 million. I will tell you that that number has been updated as of recently as November to ensure we're as close as we can to the actual cost that this will be. And we based an increase on this number based on a build that we looked at in the state of Michigan that just completed in November. And they shared with us all of their building expenses so we could update this and get as close as it will be with also adding inflation numbers in there. So we're pretty confident that we are going to be right on mark or just real close to this $23.5 million. So we are asking the taxpayers in the city of Mount Pleasant, Union Township, and the Mount Pleasant Public School System to approve a bond millage that would not to exceed $25 million and not to exceed 25 years. Again, building in that ability to be very conservative in our estimate, but very, very sure that we can get this done for the community. Now, what does that mean for the average homeowner? An average homeowner would pay $6 a month or close to $75 a year. So an average homeowner in the city of Mount Pleasant, Union Township, and the Mount Pleasant School District, it would be about $6 a month. So what I like to say is a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee a month, we can create this opportunity for our community. So I like to always talk about operational sustainability because, as I told you, a foundational piece as we went into this was that it had to be a sustainable business model. We were going to push the stop button and not go any farther if it couldn't be. And so this is a quick summary. There are probably 15 or 20 Excel model documents that back up the information in here. But what I'd like to share and highlight here is that on the facility revenue, we have been incredibly conservative, meaning when we looked at some operational pieces or revenue pieces like membership, we studied, first of all, other demographic communities that have aquatic centers. We also studied local programs like Maury Courts and the SAC to look at rates. We also looked at some penetration rates in key communities that have aquatic centers that could be comparable to us. And then we took those numbers and rolled them down. So we didn't go with what we thought our maximum membership would be. We rolled it back. And we did this on almost actually all of these revenue estimates that we made for the ideal of being, we would rather meet or exceed, we'd rather exceed these numbers than come short of them. The other side of it, though, on the expense side of it, we did the opposite. We went extremely liberal on expenses. We did not assume any particular savings. We put also in the best equipment to make our water and the air as clean and as quality as we could. So we didn't spare an expense on this side in regards to, oh, maybe we could get that for a discount. And again, we did that for a purpose. We want to super exceed and do better than we thought we were going to do. So you can see here in year 0 and year 1, we will have a deficit, and we do have a plan and already have started to design our fundraising efforts that in those first 2 years, we need to raise about $300,000 for operational support. We've already started this process. We've already started to talk to the community, and we've had some great donors already supporting our efforts thus far. So we're really not concerned about that. After that point, it becomes a sustainable business model. So now let me tell you a little bit more about the operational dollars. So in addition to just sustaining the operation, day-to-day operation of the facility, in the operational plan, we also have a capital reserve fund amount built in. So annually, we are plugging money away to save for what will be, what we know will be major capital expenses at some point. Now, this is not the, oh, we need to replace the shower head or we have some issues with the entryway door. This is that when the smaller teaching therapy pool needs new tile, completely to retile, we have the money to do that. The anticipated year of the lifespan of an aquatic center up to this point has been about 50 years. Now that is growing because technology is improving the water and air quality. But we know about year 20, we are gonna have to have some major repairs. And so we have planned, and this is our straight dollar, 2.6 million. This is not including investing these dollars. So we are shooting to get to 3 million by year 20 in order to make sure that we can not only sustain it, we can maintain it for the long haul. Last thing I want to show you about the operational plan is that not only have we built in for the long-term maintenance, we have built in what we call the rainy day fund. So I work with a lot of nonprofits, and I always say, if you have a 6-month reserve to cover you just in case something goes awry, we want to make sure we have that. We don't have this in the way that, oh, well, whatever we have left that year, we'll just throw in the rainy day fund. No, we have this in the budget, in the operational budget. And we said that our goal is that we will build in that 6-month reserve. And so that if something goes different, like when COVID happened, nobody planned on that, and that just killed our recreation organizations. So we have the plan to do that. Again, building a model that's going to be sustainable and healthy. Last thing I want to focus on in regards to the finances is the economic impact. So initially, we're anticipating 50 to 60 construction jobs over the first 15 to 18 months. Our goal and the commitment the MMARA has already made is that we want as many of those jobs to go local. We want to use local contractors when we can. We've already engaged an architect after a RFP throughout the state, and we did have to choose an architect in Grand Rapids because we don't have an aquatic specialist architect here, but we've also communicated to them our goal is to use as many local contractors as we possibly can. Initially, the Aquatic Center will have 3 full-time jobs and 70 to 100 part-time jobs that will vary depending on the programming that takes off in those first few years. So we're anticipating the first 5 years, $4 to $4.5 million just in the operational staff, not the construction staff, will be contributed in wages in the community. So between $4 and $4.5 million in the first 5 years. The second part of this is really around sports tourism economics. So what we found is that, and we've again looked at many different aquatic centers through this process, that we are on a conservative side saying we're going to we will bring in 20 event days per year. I just talked to the folks that run the Saginaw Valley Aquatic Center, which is probably our closest, I'd call, competitor. And they said to me, they don't even try, and they do 12 to 15. And they're like, you can blow these numbers out of the water if you choose to. But what this means is, this is bringing in special events to the community, bringing in thousands of families and communities into this, into the area for a multi-day swim meet, for example. So we're anticipating over $1.3 million annually coming back into our businesses. So hotels, restaurants, gas stations, through our sports tourism activities. So a couple key dates. Residents of, and this is really important because this gets confusing. If you live, or you're registered to vote at an address in the Mount Pleasant Public School District, if you're registered to vote in the city of Mount Pleasant, or if you're registered to vote in Union Township, you have the ability to vote on this proposal. And the voting is February 27th, but as you know, absentee ballots are now available, and early voting will happen the week before February 27th for those in the city of Mount Pleasant and Union Township at Powers Hall on CMU's campus. The targeting opening of the Aquatic Center is spring 2027. We hope that gets accelerated, but again, we want to be realistic and conservative with our estimate, so our anticipated opening is spring 2027. The last thing I want to ask is for you all to help us by becoming a champion, getting the word out. Most important thing, getting the word out. We have, obviously an informational campaign happening. We have a website, we have some mailers going out, we have some Facebook stuff happening, but the school district has been incredibly supportive, sharing information. Union Township has been sharing information. We want voters, regardless if they're going to vote yes or no on this, to have the facts of this initiative. And so we're going to ask you all as individuals, but the city as well, to help us continue to get information out to your constituents. Last thing I want to say, the board, because how the MMAR works is that this board is responsible for not only where we are right now and moving this forward, but they will be responsible once this passes to then manage and oversee the construction and the operation of the Aquatic Center. And so I mentioned to you John Zhang, who you've appointed. Allison Chiodini is also on the board. She was appointed by Union Township. She is a registered architect and a project manager for Hilton Hotels. Built and been part of major building projects. Myself, who I always say I'm the weak leg of the group, but my expertise is in organizational design, strategy, and startup work. Stan Shingles has over 40 years in recreation management and design and has managed the two pools at CMU for decades. Mark Stansberry is a local business owner and physical therapist in town, and Judy Wegley, I highlighted her at the beginning. So the commitment to the community is that this group is committed to transparency and fiscal sustainability. And we are required annually to have an independent audit, and we are committed to making everything very public to the community about how it's being spent, how it's being managed, and again, with that focus on it is sustainable. And there is no intention to ever come back to the community for additional resources. It's strictly to build the facility and then let the community benefit from it for decades to come. So, just shared a lot of information with you. Questions?
Vice Mayor?
I'm up to 4.
Yeah.
I think you said the facility would be north of the high school, but I think you mean east of the high school.
Sorry, it is north of the high school soccer fields.
Okay, very
Yep.
good. Is there any on-deck storage? Because right now I teach senior aqua aerobics for the Commission on Aging, and we have this locked room where we can bring our equipment out. Is that somewhere on deck?
Yep, there is a couple spaces that regular users will have space to hold it, so the swim team and other things.
Okay, and then the other two are just comments that at one of the trainings that, we get to go to, I was at one of the sessions and, I was, being asked questions and asking questions, and they really gave us kudos for forming a rec authority. So this is good. And then the last one, it was kind of a challenge to Aaron for if we can get involved in getting some of the push out information like the other entities have done. So anyhow, and thanks for your good presentation.
Thank you, thank you. Other questions? Yeah.
I know I've seen this information somewhere, but I just thought it'd be beneficial to have it in the notes and conversation of the meeting. So how much would be the average membership costs for families in the community?
Yep, so I don't have these numbers memorized, but I always have my cheat sheet. So the average monthly, so if you're a resident, so you're in the city of Mount Pleasant, you're paying the average, so for a drop-in rate for a family is $12. You want to come for the day, it's $12. Monthly, a family is $80, and just a regular adult membership is $45. And again, we looked at not only comparable communities, but we looked at the SAC and the and Maury Courts as well as to base these fees. Is that helpful?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah.
Wait, I would like you to repeat that.
Yeah.
No, because I'm thinking of who lives here. So just go ahead, repeat that so that I'm sure that I heard you correctly.
Yeah, we based all of our membership rates. We looked at like 6 or 7 comparables, and I'll have to remember, I don't have them all memorized off the top of my head, but we looked at Cadillac, for example, was one of them. We looked at the Midland Rec Center. We looked at the Otsego, Gaylord Otsego Sports Complex. We looked at the SAC. We looked at Maury Courts. And then there's a few others I can't remember, to help base our membership numbers, to make sure that we were competitive. So for a drop-in for a family is $12 if you're a resident. A monthly for a family is $80 if you're a resident, and for an adult, it's $45. Now, we have membership rates for adults, adult couples, seniors, senior couples, youth, and families, so all those different groups. The other thing I didn't mention that I want to mention is that we also have built into the operational budget what I would call need-based support. And so our goal is that, and our fundraising goal every year will be about raising additional dollars for need-based support. We want everybody that wants or needs access to the Aquatic Center to have it in our community. And so that is, again, one of our key focuses, to keep our rates, in fact, most of our rates are below what market would call for, but we want to keep our rates low, and we want to continue to raise support dollars for those that may not be able to afford access to be able to have access.
Okay, thanks. You delineated I needed to hear you say that there is a built-in rate for different groups.
Yes,
So
yes.
that wasn't clear initially, but I'm glad that you said that now
Yeah.
because I'm thinking,
who would have access if it is set at that particular amount, not
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah, fair. And remember, this is for, if you don't live in Mount Pleasant, the city of Mount Pleasant, the school district, or Union Township, doesn't mean you can't access. Like, I just talked to somebody from Gladwin that's like, oh, we want to come, and so then I'm like, oh, come and have lunch here too, right? But they will have access. They will have to pay a little more, right? They will have to pay because they are not helping pay for the original structure of this. Yeah.
Will the board continue, I know the board will continue to operate, but are they going to be the, like the insurance, like fiduciary, like they carry the insurance?
Yep, they will they will be responsible for the whole element of the aquatic center. Now, we're gonna hire an aquatics expert to run the facility and to do all that, but we will be managing that piece, yeah.
Will students will get access as a family, or will they get free access because they're part of a school district, or?
Nope, so it's not a school district initiative,
Sure.
right? So it's independent from the school district, but yes, if their family is a member, or we have also created a youth membership. So we know sometimes just the student might need to be a member or want to be a member. So we've created that category for that purpose. But when we do third grade Learn to Swim, that will be no cost to the district, no cost to the family. That will be something that we are gonna support through philanthropic support.
Sure. With the income projections based on all those, I've been to the website many times. It wasn't real clear what the letters of intent were and what was people just saying that's a great idea.
No, so, yeah.
And so that's one thing I'm wondering, how many letters of intent to say, if this thing is built,
Yeah.
we're definitely going to be a part and use it and be a paying user as a therapist, like as a physical therapist, or
Yeah.
how many of those hard letters of intent have you received?
So I think off the top of my head, I want to say it's about 20, and they are as detailed with, like, for example, the dive and rescue team said, we would use it, and again, I'm not gonna have the exact number, but we would use it 4 days a year for full day trainings, right? So some of them are incredibly detailed like that.
Sure.
The others are physical therapists saying, we definitely want to add this, and so we probably have 3 physical therapists, different physical therapy organizations that have submitted letters of intent. We have, CMU swimming and diving team have said, here's how many hours a week. Mount Pleasant High School, we need 5 days a week, for these 3 months kind of thing for the high school team. So they're that kind of detailed. And those are the only ones that we went out and said, write this down. Someone mentioned to me the other day, the gentleman who used to run the Alma College swimming pool, that ROTC, we didn't even talk to ROTC. They're like, ROTC is gonna want X amount of days, this many, blah, 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 because they rent the facility from Alma. And if ROTC here in Mount CMU, they're definitely gonna wanna use a local aquatic center. Sure. But there's no deep water, so there's just limitations on it. A scuba company has submitted a letter of intent, like, yes, we'd wanna run scuba classes at your facility, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Actually, my colleague there addressed a little bit of what I was going to ask, because you did mention that you were getting these letters from user groups, and he's thinking letters of intent. I'm thinking memorandum of understanding or agreement, which, works, in similar ways, but it's a little bit,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you understand what I'm trying to say. So, and, if they're going to do that, in this case, from these particular groups, how do you envision their membership or payment of the membership? Would that be in terms of individual membership, or is the membership then associated with the particular groups? In which case, if you're a member of this particular group, or this, here is what your membership might be, your cost might be, because you're affiliated with a particular group with which you have some kind of understanding or agreement.
Right, so how it would work, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly. So I'm gonna give you an example. If the Mount Pleasant High School swim team is gonna lease some lanes, right? That's how they'll lease some lanes, and they'll have lanes every day from 4 to 5:30. They're gonna have lanes 1 through 6 from 4 to 5:30. that will be the time they can use the facility. So if my son is not on the swim team, but let's say he was, if Ryan Seitzma says, well, I want to go swim Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., he will have to have a membership for that, because that is not when the swim team has their leased lanes, right? But during the time the swim team's got their leased lanes, he is able to use the facility. And, you know, obviously, we're not going to run around and say, oh, Ryan Seitzma, your time's up, get out of the pool. But I can tell you the swim team will be getting out of the pool and going home because they're hungry. So,
But what happens with the swim team? They do have members, right? Are they taking individual membership, or is the membership associated with that particular group?
so again, Ryan Seitzma, if he wanted to come any old time, he will have a membership. But if he's on the swim team is going to pay not a full membership for each of those people. They just lease the lane time.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get some clarity
No,
here.
good questions. Yes.
Thank you.
Have you thought of any opportunities where perhaps employers in the area could pay like a premium for their employees and then say, like for example, like Mount Pleasant Public Schools educators? Yeah.
Yes, we have. In fact, I recently talked to Rick McGurk, and he gave me this similar idea, and I'm like, that's exactly what we're talking about, is an opportunity where, whether it's an employer or a rental, or we're going to talk to Mid-Michigan Community College as well. We want to be able to have opportunities. Again, the idea is to have the more that can access this and use this facility, the better. And so any way that we can help generate and create that opportunity, we want to do that. Yeah.
When they lease lanes, what impact is that going to have on people that are coming? Because I'm a golfer,
Yeah.
and I know when there's groups that are playing for their league.
Yeah.
That impacts my ability as not a league member
Yeah.
to play, where I now have this very short window of time.
Yeah.
So how will that impact?
Yeah,
that?
really good question, and that same thing annoys me in the golf course as well. So this is one thing this is again why we designed this particular, the way it's designed. Every single quarter has a usage plan right now, and that will just continue to grow and develop. Every hour that the facility is open, every single hour the facility is open, there is space for the community to come in. Every hour. So there's never a time that the community does not have a space to be able to access and use the community. Now, you may have to adjust from you wanted to use the stretch part to do it. You may have to use lane 8. Right? Or you may have, something's going on in part of the therapy pool. You might have to use a different part of the therapy pool. But every hour the facility is open, the community has access to it. And we thought that was incredibly important to have.
Yeah.
No more having to go at 5 a.m. if you don't want to go at 5 a.m.
Are you thinking 24 hours or 12 hours?
Oh, no, not 24 hours. No. Nobody usually wants to swim at 3 a.m.
Hey, I do.
Okay, you're good. I cannot speak to the exact hours that the facility would be open, but typically it would probably be like a 5 to 10 kind of thing, maybe a little later on the weekends. But again, we'll have an aquatic specialist, but our usage fee, I think, our usage calendar right now, I think, is about 5 a.m. till about 9:30, 10 p.m.
Different topic. What water system is it hooked up to?
Oh, that's
could you talk about the arrangement with that?
As far as, the city or township?
City, township, and everything? And
So it's township property, so that piece of property is township property. Now, we have, thanks to John Zhang, and John probably could answer this in more detail, but I'm gonna give you a summary, because then we'll get really into the weeds on this one. We have been talking to the township and the city and about what kind of water this facility needs, the quality of water. And so if this passes, that's the plan, is that the aquatic specialist will come in and talk about the quality of water that this facility needs, and then talk to Union Township on, does that fit what they are providing, or would it make more sense, or does it work to tap into the city's connection? So we don't know exactly where that's gonna land now, because we haven't gotten that far yet, but that is part of the process that we will have to go through when we get there.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What do you tell somebody that says, I won't use it, I don't want to pay for it?
Yeah, so the first thing I say is we have to look past this immediate moment, right? So right now, I got involved in this because my son was a Pacer swimmer when Pacers closed. He is now graduating from high school. So he's not going to be benefiting from this aquatic center. I also have never had knee replacement or back problems, but I don't know what's to come, right? So I think that's the first thing, is that we have to also think what's coming. But I think probably even more than that, this is something that is going to serve our community for decades to come. And I don't know if that's going to be your grandchild, or if that's going to be your niece or nephew, or if that's just going to be a neighbor kid that's going to have an opportunity to experience what they can have being involved in aquatics. I don't know if that's your mom or your dad someday, or a senior that just can't do the treadmill anymore, and what this could mean for their long-term health and wellness and well-being. And then the last thing is just our community as a whole. This is the one thing that we are missing here. We are missing. And there's a lot of really small communities that have this for their community. And we are a community of size and of substance, and we deserve this. And so I ask that people think past our immediate and look long-term. This is an investment in our community for decades to come. Yeah.
From an extremely 100% selfish standpoint, it probably is going to improve property values more than $75 a year.
I have heard that as well. Yes.
And that's totally against my usual nature. I agree with everything you said, so.
I just want to say thank you for doing this and for the thorough presentation. This is needed. When I moved into Mount Pleasant, I kept saying to myself, wait a minute, there's no public swimming pool here. This doesn't make sense, only CMUs. What happens if CMUs closed? And of course, we know what happened when Rose Pool, has not been available. So this is important, it's needed, it's going to serve a lot of people. And I think you're absolutely correct. We need to think beyond the present, but we also think of what is really important for the public good.
Yeah.
For our community, for the well-being of this place. And, so thank you again.
Yeah,
This
you're
is great
welcome.
work. Absolutely wonderful.
So the last thing I will leave you with is that this is a one and done. The MMRA, as you all know, was given a period of time to get this done. And this is that our time period is coming to an end. So this isn't, if it doesn't pass, we'll come back in November. This is it. And I've been working on this for 8 years. I am done. So I'm done. So, I know that's not a popular thing. And why couldn't we have another chance? And maybe somebody else will, but the MMRA will be sunsetting. And this is our chance. So as a community, and what I've said is, as a community, if this is something that you want, and even your city recreation surveys and recreation plan have had a community pool in it for many, many years, if this is something this community wants, now is the time. Now is the time. So, I just really want to encourage people, whether they vote yes or no, to have the facts, know the information, and anything you all can do individually or as a city to help us continue to get the information out there, we greatly appreciate, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, at this time, the city manager is going to present on the 2023-2024 goals and objectives.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start this evening by going over our 2023 goals and objectives. We're going to go over those things that we'd accomplished, those things that have been pushed forward to 2024. Now, I do want to start off by saying, while I get to be here and I have the honor to present these goals and objectives and these accomplished tasks to the City Commission, these are all things that the staff at the City of Mount Pleasant has accomplished over the past year. So really, these wins belong to them, and I'm just here communicating on their behalf tonight. So I do want to say a special thank you to the staff for delivering these goals and objectives for us. Some of these things, most of these things, I should say, have been accomplished over 2023. There's a few things we had to punt to 2024. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where life just happens and some things got pushed ahead. We'll get into the particulars of those for each of those projects as we get to them, but let's go ahead and start. First off, we have identify future sites for commercial and industrial development. And we look through 2023 as to where these different areas within the city could be, where you could have future commercial industrial development, especially as it relates to industrial development. Mission Street does have some vacancy on it where commercial can go in, but industrial development doesn't have a whole lot of different places to go. We did identify that in the South Industrial District, there is property down there that while there are buildings on some of the land that's there, it's maybe only half covered. And so in working with MMDC, we're going to be moving forward with identifying some of those property owners who might be interested in selling off the back half of their property, where we'd be able to get another industrial development in those areas. Review rates to ensure that they are affordable while sustaining our infrastructure. We delivered this to the City Commission at the end of 2024 with the delivery, or at the end of 2023 with the delivery of the 2024 budget. In 2023, we had accomplished doing a water study, a sewer study, and we had also accomplished a study on our recreation fees as well. The results of those studies were reflected in the information that was presented to the City Commission and then adopted as part of our proposed 2024 budget. Stay on track with the water resource recovery facility upgrade projects, and that is something that we are continuing to do even as I go through this presentation this evening here as well. And for those of you that recall, Director Moore at one of our November meetings had presented on a number of the different public works projects, and so he had presented on that one in particular as well too, some of the things that took place with phase 1, and as 2024 rolls around, we'll be getting into phase 2 of that project as well. Further develop our infrastructure, asset management to ensure long-term success. So this is something in particular, we had onboarded a new software called ActiveOps software. This is a software that allows us to track a number of our infrastructure assets, those kind of things. And so we'll be moving forward and utilizing that in 2024. You'll see in 2024, we also have a goal that builds upon this one as well. Explore options and develop a plan for long-term stormwater asset management. In 2021, the city had undergone a study with a consultant to review our stormwater assets. Staff had looked at that in 2022 as well as 2023 and found some discrepancies in their identification of the condition of some of those assets. So if you recall, early on in 2022, the belief was that we would have to spend on average about $1 million in storm sewer assets in order to continue to upgrade and replace what we have out there. Staff looked at the condition assets and determined that that wasn't the case. There are some conditions that the consultant had called out as being significantly worse than what is true of that asset. So instead of outright replacements in areas, we might be able to do some patchwork or some lining or those kind of things. Staff has then updated those figures to reflect a need for about $500,000 on average over a 20-year period in order to move forward with the upgrading of those storm sewer assets and the replacement of what's there for future use. As of right now, the City Commission has dedicated $250,000 per year on average for projects going into the future, meaning that we'll have to come up with another $250,000 on average throughout the or into the future. One thing to note, those are average numbers. Obviously, each project's going to be different. One year you might have $250,000 to do in a project, or another year we might have $1 million project. Something that's very interesting to this is Director Moore is currently working with a team, and he's working with some folks over at FEMA. And we're actually the first community in the state of Michigan to be going through this program, which is a technical assistance program to assist us in putting forward a grant proposal to FEMA to take care of a much larger project. So we're talking about a multi-million-dollar project where FEMA would come in with a significant amount of funding. So we're going through that phase right now in 2024, and we're hoping that maybe we have some news for the City Commission in 2025 on that grant. Explore options and develop a plan for, oh, nope, that's the one I just read, sorry. Scroll down.
That's okay.
Continually improve IT security. This one in 2023, we did a number of different things. We had upgraded to Office 365, which allows us to use cloud-based software. And also any of the updates are directly done by Microsoft in real time, so there's nothing that we have to do there. We updated our SIEM, and also in 2023, we had updated our firewall as well too. We continue to do ongoing staff training regarding cybersecurity as well too. We did that all throughout 2023, and we'll do that throughout 2024 as well. Review expenditures to make sure we are spending in appropriate areas. This is something, again, that we believe we have delivered with the 2024 proposed budget. We have a total planned expenditures of just over $35 million for 2024, and we believe that our spending will be done exactly as that in areas that return benefit to our community. Provide quality employee experience from recruitment through retirement. We had talked about this internally, in particular about recruiting, onboarding, and promoting individuals with skills and also trying to train people up. When I had come on board in 2021, it was readily identified that a significant amount of our workforce would be eligible for retirement with even only just a handful of years. And even looking at 2023, the turnover rate that we had was about 17% of the total population of the number of workers for the city of Mount Pleasant. Now, most of that due to retirements. So we continue to, recruit, as we said, on board. We continue trainings internally to try to promote people up to positions when those positions become available. Evaluate benefit offerings, vendors, and contracts as needed. Select providers to expand and diversify our employee benefit offerings to aid in the attraction and retention of a diverse workforce. There are two things in particular here. One was making sure that we had successfully negotiated all of our collective bargaining agreements in 2023, and we had completed that. There was only one that we had to go through. But then also evaluating our third-party administrator and insurance broker. We evaluated that in 2023. We had made the decision to move forward with a new third-party administrator, moving to Insight Benefit Management. And so far, although early in 2024, things seem to be going very well with them. Continue positive and productive relationships with community partners, residents, and businesses. So first up on here is to evaluate the Social Crisis Advocate Program with RISE to ensure continued success of the program. We will have numbers to you here as soon as they're available to us. Typically, we would give a closeout for the City Commission, so we'll be able to review that when the numbers are available. But we also know that going into 24, that the program is going to undergo some changes. The individual that we had partnered with RISE with has since left the organization. We are working with that individual on a part-time basis to cover our needs here with the city until we can move forward with an identified replacement for that program. I will note that our 2024 budget had called for an increase in that program of 40% of its 2023 funding. So we are looking to potentially do some expansion in that program as well too. Continue to regular meetings with Central Michigan University, the county, township, and tribe. These, we typically have these monthly meetings where we meet here at City Hall. Representatives from those organizations are able to come forward, and we just essentially exchange various ideas and those kind of things. So we had a number of successes with this as well too. We were able to fold in an interesting partnership with the tribe as well with the PEAK program this past summer, in which we had several individuals come and do some cultural teachings for the PEAK program. So we thought that was really neat for 2023 as well. Partner with county to upgrade the MRF facility. So we do have representation on the county's MRF board. They are looking at a way to upgrade the MRF from its current dual stream facility to a single stream facility into the future. I know the county is looking for partners for that, and so we'll continue to be an active partner. Continue to work with diverse community groups. I do know on our agenda for tonight, Chief Loria has prepared his report on the 2023 happenings along this area in his working with various community groups. And so we'll continue doing that in 2024 as well. Provide safe accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists is the next goal. Explore financing options and construction of MMPGKB Trail. And you'll see this is the first one, and my color coding that comes up is yellow. Green indicates those things that have been completed. Yellow indicates those things that we're still working on. And red indicates those things where we've hit a significant obstacle. And there's only one on the list that has a red rating to it. But for this one, I know I've talked with the City Commission about this at my July update. We knew back then that we weren't going to be able to move forward with this as a 2023 2023 project. We were able to secure financing for it with more than 50% of the funding coming from grants or outside sources. So the city has dedicated $500,000 to this project. $400,000 of it will be coming from an MDOT grant, and the remainder of the funds will be coming in partnership with the township here. However, 2024 is when we're going to undergo all of the engineering and design for the project, and now 2025 is going to have to be the construction year for this project. And this is just the schedule that MDOT has attached to the grant for the $400,000 that we're receiving for the project. So it's outside of our control at that point. This won't be the last time we'll be talking about trails, though, because we do have significant plans for trails in 2024 as well. Next up, add sidewalk in 2023 as identified in the capital improvements plan. Maintain, replace bad sidewalk, and continue to implement the complete streets plan. All of these things completed in 2023. We spent about $150,000 in sidewalk replacement. We had constructed new sidewalk on Birch Street and some smaller sections in a few random neighborhoods throughout the city as well too, where you had gaps in sidewalks as well too. And we'll continue the same funding mechanism in 2024 as well, with $150,000 dedicated to sidewalk replacement. And then continue to implement the complete streets plan. We continue to do that as new street projects come up, and then also we continue to redo our striping every year as well to highlight where bike lanes are and those kind of things. Create a community-friendly space in our downtown area. In particular, for this one, there were two goals, and that is to create a downtown master plan. That was delivered to the City Commission and adopted very early. That was in March of 2023. We had completed that, and now we are moving forward with implementation of that plan for the next 6 years. And then pursue funding for town center redevelopment. Obviously, that was awarded in 2023. The MEDC had awarded a $1 million grant for that project. We anticipate that bids for that project will come back early in February, and we're hoping to share that hopefully good news with the City Commission then. Provide a great park system and expand our sports, events, and recreation program offerings. First up is conduct a recreation needs assessment. This one is just going to be about a month late. We had initially thought that we would be able to deliver this in Q4 of last year. But to start from the top, internally, we really looked at this project, and we're trying to look at a number of different ways of delivering this. In 2022, we had received a quote for this for about $75,000. We felt that that was very high, so we started looking at different ways where we could address doing a recreation needs assessment. We were able to identify those things that staff was very good at and could do for the recreation needs assessment, but then also piece out those things that a consultant would do. And we ended up spending, I believe, just under $30,000 on the project total. Could be wrong, but I think right around 30 at any rate. So a good cost savings there. And then moving forward, prepare a parks maintenance plan. That was completed in 2024. That maintenance plan more or less focused on the maintenance of our current park system and operations for our parks department. So that was delivered to the parks department. Create a sense of place by promoting the Meet Here branding and working to become a cool destination. Enhance marketing and communication of Mount Pleasant's strengths. I was very pleased with, and I'm hoping the City Commission was equally pleased with, some of the videos in particular that we had released in 2023. I thought our video series was very point on. We started by highlighting some of the businesses in the city of Mount Pleasant and highlighting those businesses, and they talked about kind of doing business in Mount Pleasant, why they decided to locate here, those kind of things. Very early in 2023 as well, too, we had a video with a number of developers, which I was very happy to see. We had some developers that we had interviewed who had talked about doing business with the city, their liking of the process and those kind of things. So we'll continue doing those in 2024 with, I know we have a number of different ideas, but I don't think the final list has been set just yet on what the titles or themes of those videos will be. Address the housing market demands in our community, including home ownership opportunities. This really boiled down to a handful of different programs or projects. And so I'll start from the top. One, we had reviewed our pilot ordinance previously, or our pilot policy. Previously, the City Commission, previous City Commission, I should say, had put a stop on pilot programs coming into the city, that is payment in lieu of taxes. The City Commission had taken a look at that and felt very comfortable in moving forward with it. And so we solicited some interest from developers. City Commission was able to select and move forward with a pilot ordinance in 2023 that would regulate a proposed pilot project here. So we should find out here in Q1 of this year if that proposed development was successful in securing their MSHDA funding, which is vital to their project. We had also looked at residential permits, and we wanted to look at residential permits from the previous year, 2022, and compare that to 2023. Now, these are new single-family builds, and we really tied the previous year. We had 4 new single-family builds in 2022. We had 4 new single-family builds in 2023. All that, though, to say that I don't think that's that bad, just given the environment that we're in, though. I mean, one has to admit that the cost of materials and labor is much, much higher, and now the cost of borrowing money is much, much higher. And obviously, the affordability of home ownership is one of those things that we wanted to focus in on. So we'll continue to monitoring that, and we'll keep that metric moving forward in 2024 and report back to the City Commission on that. NEZs are something that we had discussed with the City Commission, and the City Commission had indicated their interest in moving forward with an NEZ policy. However, as we started to put some of the details of the NEZ policy together, we had realized that there's just a few issues in how this would be implemented. And so this is one that we do, out of this list, have to punt into 2024 for, I think, a little further study. And it essentially boils down to this. The state law that allows for NEZs sets that an individual who is in an NEZ neighborhood who invests only $500 into their home could receive the same NEZ tax break. And on the back end, it's very hard to calculate. That's something that the state calculates. But you could see the problem there where someone could invest, let's say, a one-time amount of $500 and then receive a significant tax break for years to come. Great return on investment for the individual. However, if we expand this citywide, that becomes very difficult for the city to manage its funds and its revenue as well, too. So we'll have to continue to look at that for existing homeowners and how best to apply it. Are there certain neighborhoods, areas? Because I think in discussing this on a high level scale, we all had this idea of if an individual were to take, let's say, a historic home and significantly restore that historic home, we should probably do a tax break for that individual. They've taken a property that was a very low value, created great value out of it, and maybe that there's a way to help them out with the affordability of that. So just trying to apply it in the right area is going to be our goal in identifying a means of doing that in 2024. And then lastly, the rental to homeowner program that the city had previously run, the City Commission had a conversation on that. We had identified that the program just really didn't deliver on the results that were intended. And so it was agreed to not move forward with that program into the future. Right, continue the neighborhood enhancement program. This was ongoing through 2023, and it will be ongoing in 2024 as well, too. So we had round 8, we were awarded $75,000, and we put that to good use with match from HODAG funds as well, too. Going into 2024, we're actually eyeballing a new grant. We're going to be talking about that at our public hearing tonight, and that is the CHILL grant, and that would essentially be $500,000 of CDBG funding that could be used to support our NEP program, granting out $10,000 to homeowners and potentially benefit more than 40 properties out there within the city. So we are in the second round of that. If the City Commission passes the resolution tonight, we'll be able to move forward for further consideration and final consideration from the state, and we would know sometime this year if we're awarded that grant or not. Maximize economic viability on Mission Street. First one here, and this one's in yellow. Hire a consultant to evaluate design elements for Mission Street improvements to make more business attractive. So in order to move forward with the Mission Street potential changes or potential plans for the future, we needed MDOT to conduct a study, not just of traffic, but then also of modeling of various pedestrian safety type elements on the corridor, those kind of things. MDOT had initially planned on getting those deliverables to us in Q1 of 2023. That then got pushed back to Q3, pushed back to Q4. We do know we will get those in Q1 of this year, and in fact, we have a meeting with MDOT next month to discuss the preliminary results of their findings here. So we know that we'll have delivery in 2024. The idea from there is to take that modeling then, and then to say, all right, if this is what works within MDOT's modeling, we then have to talk to the broader community about, are these the things that we want to see, or are there things in there that we don't want to see? So we'll have conversations, obviously, with the City Commission, with the Planning Commission, as well as the DDA as well, too, and the general public to get feedback on that. We will be working with a consultant on that one. That is one, though, that consultant will be paid utilizing funds through the Redevelopment Ready Communities program that we're a part of. RRC does give us some funding for things to meet certain needs for RRC certification. And when we took a look at the needs that we have, this really was one that we felt would probably carry the biggest load and would be the best return on investment of those funds. And then lastly, prepare the Mount Pleasant Center for future development opportunities. The City Commission was, you're definitely aware that working towards a clean title for the property, we had obviously raised suit with the state. We had won in the Court of Claims. The state has since appealed that, and now we find ourselves essentially waiting for the docket for the appeals court. If what the city attorney tells us is true, we might not hear anything until Q3 of this year. So that is one that's going to be pushed forward into 2024. That does mean that moving forward with the archaeological study currently is put on hold for two reasons. One is to get some clarity on what's going on with the property, but two, our friends at the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe have come to me with a proposal for some changes to that MOU. And so staff's going to review that, and we plan on getting back with the City Commission to discuss that in Q1 of this year. And then finally, prepare for the creation of a general development plan and strategy for the property. I think all of that also has to hold on until the other issues are sorted out. That said, that's my presentation on 2023. Are there any questions or anything from the City Commission?
Sounds like it was a pretty good year.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. We've been busy, right?
Yeah, thank you. No, easy, super easy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, then I'm going to very quickly to just tee up and go over goals for 2024, because I think it's important to start the new year right here, just with some of the things that we've already determined that we're going to be working on in 2024. So first up, complete all required landfill remediation efforts. We anticipate that this will be completed by the end of 2024. Of course, tonight we have on our agenda our consultants here who are going to talk about the kind of list of activities that we need to complete in 2024. City Commission will be able to answer any questions of that consultant as well too. Prepare a climate change preparedness plan. And there's a few different ways of going about this, and I think that there's likely wisdom in having the City Commission hold a work session on this topic, because there's just a number of different ways that we could go about addressing climate change in our preparedness plan. And I really want to make sure that I capture all the City Commission's various interests in this plan by the time we deliver it. But I'm still hoping to be able to deliver it by the end of Q2. Adopt best practices in asset management. We had talked about the onboarding of our ActiveOps software. What we want to do is take a look at some of our policies and our procedures and really develop some of the best practices according to the Asset Management Council. Look for ways to cut down or find ways to compensate for city services provided to non-resident customer, non-city customers without payment. So this is just more finance work that we want to do in the next year. There's a lot of different services that the city has out there, and there are a lot of fees that we have attached to those services. We want to weigh those fees with, what's going out there in, some of the competitors. If we're charging a certain amount for, let's say, soccer, where does that fall with some of our other competitors out there? Those kind of things, and see if that there's some interest in making some changes there, if there's some justification for that. Monitor the city's tax base and develop interventions to stabilize. When I came on board in 2021, we started doing these sort of 10-year projections. We'll take a 3-year average over the past 3 completed fiscal years, look at what's going on in terms of revenues and expenses within the general fund. We project that out 10 years. Then we say, all right, where does this put us in 10 years? Where do we think that unassigned fund balance will be? Those sort of things. And so we'll continue that practice in 2024 and going forward. Continue positive and productive relationships with community partners and residents and businesses. Create a workforce development program in partnership with GI Tech, CMU, and Mid-Michigan. I'm happy to say that our GI Tech program is essentially up and running, and so at this point we are just looking for students who would be interested in taking part in that. We are also looking internally at some of the offerings that we could have for CMU and Mid-Michigan students as well too. Renew the city's redevelopment ready community certification. This we plan on having done by the end of Q2 2024. All things related to this are going to be due to the state at the end of Q1 here in March. So there's only one outstanding issue that we're currently working on internally, and we should have that wrapped up within the next couple of weeks. At that point, the state will have everything and they'll conduct the review process, and we anticipate recertification in Q2. Provide safe accommodations for pedestrians and bicyclists, expand walkability in the city of Mount Pleasant. That'll be continuing our sidewalk replacement program and our assessments. Again, we have $150,000 dedicated in the budget in 2024 to address this issue. Identify grants and partners to expand MMPGKB Trail and increase signage on the trail. As I discussed on the north section, design and engineering will take place in 2024 with construction in 2025. That now leaves the southern connector and how to address that. In 2024, staff is going to identify a pathway for the southern trail connection and secure rights to the pathway for that southern trail connection. And then we'll be looking at grant opportunities for funding construction into the future. Create a community-friendly space in our downtown area. This is all about completing town center in 2024. We should, again, have bids back early in February, and hopefully we'll be sharing some good news with the city commission then, and we'll have a better idea of scheduling then as well, too. Provide a great park system and expand our sports, events, and recreation program offerings. Upgrade and add universal access to Chippewater's park playground structure. That should be done during construction this year and completed in Q3. Create recreation programs identified in the recreation needs assessment. We think we'll probably be working the bulk of the year on this, with delivery of that recreation needs assessment taking place in Q1 of 2024. Staff is going to obviously have to take some time to review it, look at what gaps might be identified in that recreation needs assessment, and then come up with a plan for programming into the future. Create a sense of place by promoting the Meet Here branding and work to become a cool destination. So 2 things in particular for our communications department: promote that Mount Pleasant is centrally located, as well as continue to monitor the analytics of our communication channels and make sure our information stays fresh and relevant. That'll take, for the most part, throughout 2024 to do. We believe that our promotions, they typically end before the holiday season, so I think all of our promotions will be in and done probably around Q3. Work with community partners to support an event that brings more people to Mount Pleasant. This will be something that our Parks and Recreation Department will work on, identifying partners for such an event, creating a vision for the event, and then building a budget around that event. Address the housing market demands in our community, including home ownership opportunities. This will be monitoring and evaluating the performance of our pilot and NEZ programs. Obviously, I've discussed where NEZ is at currently, and we'll come back to the City Commission once a plan has been established. And then as far as the pilot program, we should hear back in Q1 as to the potential for the pilot project that was brought before the City Commission and if it's going to be able to move forward in 2024. Maximize economic viability on Mission Street. That'll be engaging stakeholders in future development options for the corridor, exactly what I had talked about earlier, in working with NDOT and a consultant to identify how we want the corridor to look, and determine the interest in continuing the DDA and TIFA districts beyond 2025. Both of those tax captured districts are set to expire at the end of 2025. 2024 will want to take an evaluation of what those tax captured districts have done, discuss any potential plans for the future, and then if there is interest in continuing those TIF districts into the future, we'll want to write that plan in 2025 and have it adopted before the end of the year. And then lastly, prepare the Mount Pleasant Center for future development opportunities. Consider long-term development options for the former Mount Pleasant Center property. I think that's also going to be on hold most of the year as we try to sort out some of this other business. But we'll see. Maybe good news comes our way. So that is our plan for 2024. Do I have any questions, comments, concerns on that?
Actually, there's a piece here that's linked to your previous, earlier presentation on the goals, where you were talking about collaborations with community members and partners, and you talked about the tribal members making a presentation for PEAK. Have you considered other groups, because there are, this is becoming a very diverse community. There are other groups here too that you could also perhaps, see if you can work with, or, have it extend a hand to hopefully do what the tribal members were doing in terms of cultural presentations and other kinds of presentations,
That's an excellent idea, yeah, and we're always looking for those kind of opportunities, so I can, the team's here, I know the team's watching, but yeah, I would say it's definitely worth taking a look at that. I can talk with the team about any ideas that they may have, and Commissioner Eke, if you have any opportunities that you might know of, please send them my way. We'd love to take a look at that.
Really? Yeah. Okay, and, also think about the international students at CMU. They bring cultural components that we don't necessarily, so absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you,
Great presentation.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much, Manager.
Thank you very much.
All right, at this time, we have a presentation by Nicole Frost. Yes? All right, for the Isabella County millage in February.
Oh, boy, we get a trio.
Thank you. I'm Tobin Hope, Chair of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners. This is Nicole Frost, our Administrator Controller. Jerry Jelezinski, our Vice Chairman. As you know, the county has placed on the February 27th ballot a 2.5 mil increase to the operating millage. This came after a lot of thought and careful consideration, analysis of budget models, looking at future revenues and expenses. County leadership, consisting of 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats, came to the unanimous conclusion that we have to ask voters for a 2.5 mil increase to the property tax levy. We've been operating under the current 6.61 mil levy since 1978. And to be fair, there have been special millages for IRIDE, the parks and the Commission on Aging and the medical care facility, all of which have added up to about 3 mils together. But services have been greatly expanded in those areas because of those special millages. But the big part of this need really is wages and benefits. 73% of all county operating expenditures are for wages and benefits. The county has about 256 employees. We've only seen a 3.5% increase in the last decade. And the new public defender office that we created due to new standards for indigent defense from the state has accounted for all of that and then some. So we really have not grown our workforce. There's a lot of pressure in this current market, this current economic climate, and we've had difficulty attracting and retaining employees in all departments, especially in admin. The Sheriff's Department, the Prosecuting Attorney's Office has not been fully staffed in a few years. We've had trouble filling positions across all the departments. Healthcare benefits, ours went up 9% last year. Some entities are seeing double-digit increases in healthcare benefits, so that adds to the pressure as well. The pension liability, we have not offered new employees a pension since 2002. But the liability for employees under the old defined benefit pension program through MERS has been a significant factor in total employee costs, and we're legally obligated to cover those costs. MERS had a negative 10% rate of return in 2022, so that did not help. This is our major concern, and our major contributor to projected deficits is the wages and benefits part of it. Another factor, the current correctional facility built in 1958 or 1959, somewhere right in there. We did a feasibility study in 2016. The structure is sound, it's masonry, but all the mechanical systems are at risk of failure. We had a rooftop heating unit fail last winter, and it cost us $1,000 a day to get emergency heat into the correctional facility. We've had plumbing issues after plumbing issues, and a major plumbing failure would necessitate tearing up some concrete floors. Also, the current facility does not meet Michigan Department of Corrections standards, and any major renovation might necessitate bringing it up to those standards. It's linear, so there's no clear sight lines to the cells, which isn't safe for the inmates or the staff. And new facilities are built on either a circle or a half circle, where you got a central command station where you can see every cell. Much safer design. What we have is mostly dormitory cells. It's really hard to properly separate prisoners according to state standards for risk that they pose to staff and other inmates. There's not enough room for the community mental health people that do a lot of work with our inmates. Female prisoners are becoming a larger percentage of the inmate population. We don't have enough room for those folks. There's a lack of proper exercise space. There's a lack of natural light, which all are part of newer MDOC standards. And to do any major remodel would require us to bring it up to MDOC standards, most likely. So it's really not feasible to do a major remodel of a building that has to house 130 to 150, sometimes more people, 365 days a year. We'd have to figure out somewhere else to house those folks. The new facility, the construction project, and debt payments for the Sheriff's Office and Correction Facility are about 25% of the county's deficit problem. We still have a big deficit problem without the new facility. COVID had a huge impact on construction industry for cost of materials and labor. As we know, the cost of the project has increased dramatically since the initial planning stages. We were able to modify the design to save several million. We've scaled it down. We've used different materials here and there where we could. We've done everything we can to save money. We were able to secure a USDA rural development loan at 2 1/8%. Those rates went up the day after we signed that loan. So, and they're much higher today. So waiting would have costed millions more. We don't house inmates for other counties. We used to a long time ago. We haven't done that in quite some time. We do house a few inmates for the U.S. Marshals, and they pay us a decent rate for that. And the new facility is not overbuilt. It's built for our current needs. There is room for future expansion, which we hope we never need. So adding to the current financial pressures was this discovery of asbestos throughout our administration building. We had plans to replace some of our aging and inefficient HVAC equipment. And when undertaking a project of that magnitude, we're required to test for asbestos. And we found that it's on all of the ceiling decking. It's that spray-on fire retardant that they went crazy with in the 1970s. And the problem with it is that in time, it delaminates and falls, and it's laying on all the ceiling tiles, which isn't a problem until you need to run some cable or change a light bulb or remove a ceiling tile. So we needed to make that building safe for employees and for the public. We had to relocate everyone to rented space, remove all the furnishings. The contractor is currently working to remove the material on 3rd floor and working their way down. You have to soak it. They have big airless paint sprayers that spray water on it and then manually scrape it off. So it's a huge undertaking. The ductwork had to be removed, be able to get at that. And there's asbestos in some of the caulk that holds the ductwork together. So we're not exactly how much putting all this back together is gonna cost. We think around 4 million. So these things together, the increase in wages and benefits, including our MERS pension liability, the sheriff's office and correctional facility, and the abatement and rebuilding of our admin building have combined to complicate our financial outlook. And it's why we're asking for an operating millage. So what happens if the millage doesn't pass? Cuts. With wages and benefits being 73% of expenditures, cuts to personnel across all county departments. The sheriff's department has a large number of these employees. We are continually mandated to have a correctional facility, but we are not constitutionally mandated to provide the sheriff's road patrol, and that's where some of the cuts would have to come from, and that's the part that bothers me the most. So, excuse me 1 second. So I live in the city. I have for 26 years. We have an excellent Department of Public Safety. Response times for police and fire calls are impressive, to say the least. They do an excellent job. The county millage will not affect the number of city police officers we have, of course. But the availability of county services does affect us. The city is not an island, and in fact, unless you know where the boundaries are, we know, of course, but you don't know if you're actually in the city or not. If you go to Walmart, you're not in the city. When I pick up my granddaughter at Renaissance out on Isabella, not in the city. I go to my bank on M20 in Lincoln, that's not in the city, right? So there's also a lot of very large apartment complexes that are right next to the city limits, but not in the city. And a diminished police presence in any of these areas immediately adjacent to the city will impact the city. Crime will spill over into the city. The impact will not bode well for people's impression of the city or of CMU. The Sheriff's Department is the only law enforcement agency that covers the entire county 24/7, 365 days a year. So if I or someone I know had the misfortune to be in an emergency situation or an accident or the victim of a crime anywhere in the county, I'd like to think we could all rely on a quick response time. Nothing but good things to say about the Public Safety Department here in Mount Pleasant, but we need law enforcement throughout the county. There are other considerations for city residents. We need a fully staffed prosecutor's office. We need to continue to prosecute criminal activity everywhere in the county, including the city. We need a public defender's office for those folks who cannot afford a lawyer. We need the courts, and we need the drug and alcohol programs they provide for adults and juveniles. We need the day treatment programs for juveniles. But also the public safety concerns are vital. But there are other important services which the county provides. If you need a passport or a marriage license, copy of your deed, if you use MSU Extension Services, the county maintains an emergency operations center that has the staff and infrastructure to respond to major emergencies anywhere in the county. And they were a critical part of our response to the flood of 2017. The county provides recycling services and a myriad of other services. The Isabella County General Fund supports in whole or in part the following departments: County Administration, Animal Control, Animal Shelter, the Board of Commissioners, Central Michigan District Health Department, Community Development, Community Mental Health, County Clerk, the Drain Commissioner, Emergency Management, Equalization, Facilities, GIS, Human Rights, Information Technology, Medical Examiner Services, MSU Extension, 4-H, prosecuting attorney, public defender's office, recycling, registered deeds, sheriff's office, corrections, road patrol, substance abuse services, county treasurer, Isabella County Trial Court, and Veterans Affairs. So finally, I'll just say the passage of the proposed 2.5 mil general operating levy will ensure the continuation of these county services. For a home valued at $100,000, would have a taxable value of $50,000. The increased levy would cost the homeowner $125 annually. My house has about a $69,000 taxable value. My increase would be about $172, which represents about a 5.75% increase to my total tax bill. We don't want to raise taxes. We know people are struggling. We do feel it would be irresponsible to make the kind of drastic cuts to services that will be necessary without giving the voters the opportunity for us to continue those services. For more information, you can go to our webpage, isabelcounty.org, and hit the blue tab at the top of the page that says for more information on the Isabella County millage proposal, click here. So lots of info there.
Jerry Jalzinski, Vice Chair for the County Board, and I'm also the Chair of the Finance and Administration Committee. I'm going into my 10th year serving on the County Board of Commissioners. Before that, I did serve Isabella County for 13 years as the Parks and Recreation Director from 1985 to 1998. And all I can say is that the services the county has offered are basically the same. We're not out, with this millage, we're not offering anything new. We're trying to be providing the same consistent services that we've provided for decades. We're having to fight a lot of financial headwinds, and that's why we know with our 10-year budget forecast, we know we're going to have a problem. We know we're going to have to either come up with additional revenues or we're going to have to cut the budget. It's nothing that we want to do. Like Chairman Hope mentioned, basically we've always been a 4-3 split, either 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans or 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats. But we've been able to work hand in hand. I think the only other commissioner on the board with more time is Jim Marino. And I think, Jim, you served here on the city council at one time, right? But we do not want to make these cuts. We will if we have to, because we're not allowed to have a deficit budget. And we know that's what we're going to have in just a year or two. So we'll let the voters have a chance to weigh in on this, and that's the purpose why we've decided finally to go for the millage. Again, it's nothing that any one of the 7 commissioners wanted to do. We know it's a tough time, but it's also a tough time for the county to maintain a consistent level of services without additional revenues.
Mayor, council, and city manager, you might be happy to know that I don't have a presentation also. I'm here because I was forwarded some questions that may be asked tonight, and so I'm here in case there are questions, and there's also several department heads and electeds and other commissioners too from the county here in case I can't handle the questions or they're better suited. So at this time, we don't have anything further, so if there are questions from council.
Vice Mayor.
I've heard this is a 6-year millage, is that correct? And so what do you anticipate in 6 years? That, we won't have the asbestos issue, we'll still have the increased wages needed. I'm guessing at that point it would be perhaps a new millage that's maybe a little smaller? It's just a guess.
So the 6 years was chosen. I know that we knew that the county could choose a longer term, but really 6 years I feel was chosen because the county wants to meet the community halfway on this. We are doing long-term forecasting, and so we can see this coming. As you heard the chair and the vice chair say, it needs to be either an increase in revenues, a decrease in expenses, or a combination of both, right? Again, with this deficit staring us in the face, I do think, I believe Chairman said it, that it would be irresponsible not to go to the voters to ask for this. So the county will be righting the ship, the county will be making cuts, and so this levy, we hope, would be a stopgap to get us to that point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Eke?
I want to, well, thanks for the presentation, Commissioner Hope. This is, it's very comprehensive. And I want to say thanks for presenting us with the possibilities and, what might happen if this doesn't pass. So you're telling us that 73% of the wages are in benefits, the 73% of what you're asking would be in the area of benefits and wages.
Well,
Am I to
73% of our expenditures
Total
are
expenditures.
for benefits and wages.
Okay. You also emphasize the sheriff's office. So what percentage of this, because you did bring that up, saying that that's mostly where it seems to me the expenditure might go. What percentage of your total expenditure or what you're asking might go towards the sheriff's department? Do you have a sense of that?
Probably not so much in percentages, but I think I could probably equate it to percentages if that's what you are looking for. So in the sheriff's office, you've got wages for corrections and wages for road patrol on the other side. So Melissa, I'm going to ask you to help me if I get this wrong. Corrections is around 3 million, maybe a little more than 3 million. Road patrol, including sheriff's admin, is about 3.5 million. So we're not looking to cut corrections. That's a mandated service. There might be more efficiencies in that, that we could come up with, but the cuts would come from the road patrol side as non-mandated. Does that help you in terms of?
Yeah,
The millage would raise roughly $6 million in 1 year, so.
I'm not even asking about that, about the cuts. I just need clarity in terms
Okay.
of, and you did indicate also that there is some revenue that comes in from the prisons, right? From the inmate housing. So am I to assume that that's the only source of revenue that the county has?
For the correctional facility.
Okay. But besides.
Well, no, I mean, the inmates and police, sheriff, if you can do a better job, please hop up here, but
I
the
didn't
inmates
say
do
that.
we bring in quite a bit of revenue from the inmates that we have, just for commissary. We rent them, if you will, the use of tablets and things like that, so that brings in revenue to us too.
I thought he was also, Commissioner Hope was talking about housing, something to do with housing the inmates. Did I hear you incorrectly?
No, and I'll let the sheriff comment on that. We used to house inmates from Wayne County.
I understand.
We haven't done that in a long time, but we
Okay.
still get asked about that.
Okay.
We do house inmates for the federal marshals. Those folks usually go to court over in Bay City. So we house them and they reimburse us for those housing costs. There's also a big expense in housing inmates in that when people are incarcerated, they lose their Medicaid. So we provide their medical care. And that contract increased by $150,000 for this fiscal year. So that's getting very, very expensive. So Sheriff, I don't know if you want to comment on that further or?
Evening, folks. So years ago, way before my time and even my predecessor, he stopped the practice of housing out of county. One of the reasons they stopped was it was just overloading our building. It was just overloading the system. It was dangerous to the staff. It was dangerous to the other inmates. We get asked that all the time, and I think there was an article just recently in the last 24 hours that said, you should be housing and making money. Since the bond and bail reform changed here a few years ago, we don't have overcrowdings. None of the jails in the county, the 83 counties, have overcrowding anymore, though that's why we used to be at about 188 inmates. We're at 150. Because those low-level offenders, the drunk drivers, the retail frauds, the suspended licenses, they don't come to jail. And if they do, they're out by morning with no cash bond. So all these numbers went down. So there's nobody really out there in need of housing. So that opportunity is gone. We tried to increase revenue by doing the federal marshal. Part of that was because of the federal reservation. It helps that process. We don't have to run federal prisoners, to clear to base cities. So we have a housing unit that can do that. And it was a generator, or going to be a generator, hopefully, for revenue. Problem is now the federal government has kind of caught up to the bail and bond reform stuff, so we don't have as many either, right? So those numbers are down. So disappointing, because during COVID, looked like we were going to be making and generating pretty decent money off in this, and that's really fallen off. Now, whether the new facility, we can encourage them to do more, I don't know. Everybody seems to be a lot less of the federal inmates as well. So I would guess probably by the time we do a charge to the inmate every day they're there. Some pay, some can't pay. They do have the opportunities, some phone calls and stuff. But I would guess our revenue from the inmate portion's probably 10 to 15%, and that might be on the high side, what we generate. So, we are the bigger pull in the county. We don't have the fines and costs, maybe like the courts do and stuff like that. So our numbers always look skewed from what the requirement is for the general fund to operate us to what we bring in. Obviously, we don't bring in anything. We are still operating with the same amount of deputies that we did in 1985. So when you look at the increase, when I started in 16, our crime rate was at 24%, and these are the sheriff's office numbers, not global, but we're at 49 last year. So we know the increase, right? We look at the violent crimes, we look at the change in our community, and the commissioner was exactly right. When this is like a 4 or 5 prong leg or a chair. You guys are very fortunate. You have Director Laurie and his team who are phenomenal. But if they don't hold up their end of the bargain, we feel it in the township and the community, right? If we can't hold up the bargain, and we take 70% of the incidents and calls in the county. So Union Township and the surrounding communities, that 70% falls on us. If we can't hold that up, we will see crime increase in those areas, and that will flow into the city and other places. We've seen that, we don't see any crime that's major that doesn't affect one or the other. So we have a great partnership, and we've worked together very well for that partnership. And I'm concerned about the community if we can't seem to shore this right. So.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I'm asking these detailed questions is because I'm not sure that a lot of people understand the issues. And so in a way, I appreciate, the presentation, but I also appreciate the details, because without this, I have no sense of what's happening there. So thank you.
We appreciate the questions as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Wingard.
Just a question, because I'm finding out that, so Sheriff Maine, actually, I think you'll probably be suited to answer, but I was kind of surprised to find out that road patrol isn't state mandated. When I think of the sheriff's office and rural communities, I was surprised, that was kind of a surprising fact to me. Without road patrol, what does what is the sheriff's function? What would that look like for you folks?
Well, a reduction in workforce or employees obviously is going to impact us drastically. We do have a 24-hour coverage. We do a required minimal, so we always have at least 2 deputies on. We turn 1.8 incidents an hour. We turn about 16,500 a year, just the sheriff's office. So we're very, very busy. If they start to pull, we have to pull some of those numbers back. And I've talked to our state police commander. He's our partner in this as well. They're into the same workforce reductions as we are. They just graduated 65 troopers out of the last school that won't fill vacancies and retirees. The state police post here in Mount Pleasant has a mandate to cover 4 counties. They cover 4 counties: Mount Costa, Osceola, Claire, and us. So they're always rotating back and forth. We may have a trooper, we may not have a trooper. So what can we do? If it's half my staff, can we work with the state police and say, we can cover Monday, Tuesday, you cover Wednesday, Thursday? I mean, there probably will be gaps where there's no law enforcement. I've taken the opportunity to go and meet with Mike Williams, who was the sheriff of Macomb County. They lost their road patrol back in 2013, 14-ish, and somewhere in there. And he got a public safety millage back in around the 2016, still has not been able to rebuild that. He's still got 10 vacancies. It's taken this long just to try to get back up to speed. My lieutenant for the jail works or lives in Vesterberg, which is Montcalm County. When they lost it, they called one night because they thought somebody was breaking in their house. His wife did, he was working. His wife thought somebody was breaking in, and they said that all the troopers were in another county on a major incident. In the next morning, somebody showed up to check on them, right? So those are horror stories, right? Those are horror stories. So we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
I have an additional question. So to what extent do you, what's the nature of your collaboration with CMU and tribal police?
So we're
And how might that impact,
yeah.
your work?
So I think we're a little odd compared to most communities because we have a great relationship. We meet every 2 weeks. The chiefs do. We talk. We work together hand in hand. If we're tied up, I know we got a tribal officer or a city officer that's going to come out on these major incidents or to hold it down or to help us out. Vice versa, we do the same for them. So we have a great working relationship. I do deputize every law enforcement officer in this county. That's been the standard practice of this sheriff's office way before my time. In fact, 2 sheriffs ago that I'm aware of. So that means they can go to Target, they can go to Walmart, they can go to the housing complexes, they can handle situations if we're not there. The collaborative effort is great, right? So, and we did this, and Director Laurie will know, back in 16 when we kind of both started together, we made a conscious effort that we were going to change some of the major events that happened in our community so they weren't civil unrest, there weren't, this mentality of what was going on, and we've done that together as a team, right? So now we have these great weekends that are busy in our community, but they're not really nowhere near what they were. And that's because we went out, we educated, we talked to people, we were on foot, and then we enforced. But now we don't have to do that. We just go talk to them. It's solid, right? So we don't want that to step up in the township, in the housing units. We don't want that to build back up for anybody. So that collaborative effort is huge, but it takes the whole team.
Communications improvement.
Yeah, that's why the commissioner just mentioned that we do have a simple terms, radio tower coming to our community. It's going to be a central dispatch. We got an allocation from the state, $4.8 million to do a public safety communications tower. You may not know this, maybe you do. The city, CMU, and the surrounding areas, and the box stores and the campuses, they struggle getting our radio communications inside those buildings. So we have been after it for many years. We finally got this allocation, so we're building this tower as a team, right? And we've all said, okay, we're going to do this as a team. We're going to put this tower up, and we're going to make sure all of these buildings and things that our radios, like we call them, bonk out, when they bonk out, work. And then when that's done, then we're going to refresh everybody's portable radios and their mobile radios, because that's tens of thousands of dollars for all of the agencies, excluding the state police. They have their own funding mechanism on that. So those are those collaborative efforts that we work hard on together. And it's been a team all the way through, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bush.
This is a very general and I hope not too complex question, but I just want to put it in layman's terms. For lack of a better explanation, it feels like we're in a little bit of some dire straits here. And did we get to this point essentially from just a series of events, a perfect storm, if you will? Obviously, some of these expenditures have been planned for, but it seems like we find ourselves in kind of a bad situation. And I know you're thinking along the short term with the 6-year mills, but going forward, what is the county doing to say, hey, let's not be quite in this tight spot in the future? Like, how's that being looked at?
So I had mentioned that we're looking at a lot of different financial storms. We, for the 9 previous years I've been on the board, we've had to draw from either our fund balance or from a delinquent tax fund and from other funds. The delinquent tax fund, the treasurer's here, we used to provide anywhere from 600,000 to, I think the highest was about 1.2 million to balance our budget in some of those years. Well, the Supreme Court, both in Michigan and the National Supreme Court, said that's unfair taking of property, which I totally agree with. So we don't have those dollars available to us. So when you automatically lose that source of funding, you have to continue with what you have. COVID-19, that has been catastrophic, not only for families, but for governmental entities. It seems like we can never fill our employee positions. It's like a revolving door. It's because we don't pay enough. And so we've increased pay in a past wage study. I think there was about $1.2 million. We had no choice because we didn't find candidates applying for positions. We're in that same boat today. The housing bubble, I mean, all these things had an impact on our budget. In fact, it seems like on a regular basis, we have people going to the tax tribunal, apartment complexes and retail commercial outlets saying we need to reduce our property tax costs because of the different arguments they can make to the tax tribunal. And those get approved, and it takes away not only county revenue, it takes away city revenue, township, and a lot of these are like 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 or more, and those have impacts over time. So it's like we have done nothing wrong other than to try to maintain a constant level of services. We haven't wasted funds. We've worked very well together, and it's just, we need to get through this somehow, or it's going to be a different county government. There's going to be a lot of services that people have grown accustomed and value that aren't going to be there anymore.
So with the, it says that there's a forecasted annual deficit of $6 million with the, and it says the current 10-year forecast is identifying that the county will exhaust its use of available fund balance in 2026. So if there's an annual deficit of $6 million, which I mean, from the loss of revenue and the gaining of more wages, after 6 years, if there's a loss of, if there's a deficit of $6 million, this has to be ongoing forever. I mean, is that correct? Because that's what I'm reading from the website. It says, due to the forecasted annual deficit of $6 million and the fund balance being exhausted, a 6-year millage isn't going to be 6 years. I mean, it's so are we going to come back every 6 years and say, this is where we're at? Because the problem that we're solving is temporary and it's going to keep coming back to this. Because unless things are cut, and like you said, we're not getting any more services, we're going to maintain the current services just with this millage. So to maintain the current budget in 6 years after the millage, if it passes, there's going to be another push. So in 6 years, what are we going to say to be able to push another millage through? Because it's going to need to be if the forecasting tool is correct, right?
You hit the nail right on the head. We can't promise that we won't need to have to come back for a renewal of that millage in 6 years, but it gives us some breathing time to see if we can make some of the cuts, see if we can come up with some additional revenues. But in all likelihood, we probably will be looking at a renewal of that millage in a 6-year period.
Are there possible grants that might address some areas?
Pardon me?
Are there possible grants that might address some of the needs?
Grants.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
we need money, so
There's
that's
grants.
clear.
We
Yeah.
got the $4.7 million for the tower. It says we've got $52 million grants. I don't know how far back, 10 years. But usually those grants are very specific. They come in for Parks and Recreation, for acquisition or development. They come for that tower. The only grant that I can think of that we've gotten in the last 10 years that was not tied to something directly was the federal COVID dollars that came our way, which we could use a portion of those dollars for some mandated required uses, and we took lost revenue. Now, the lost revenue, we took about, I think, $7 million, is that correct? And we applied that to our jail, because the COVID was increased the cost of that jail from the point that we approved the project and we finally got out to bid. So we can still seek grants, but they're probably not going to put deputies on the street or fund animal control or animal adoption services, any number of these things that may have to be cut.
That's true. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I think I would add too, because you brought up a really good.
I got another one.
Astute point. I think it's fantastic. One of the things Chairman had mentioned, MERS, our pension plan, having had quite a terrible year last year. I think it was a negative 12%, actually. Yeah, so that was pretty damning to us because the forefathers of the county that in the past almost 25 years ago now, decided to close that pension plan. And MERS, when the beginning, when we had that pension plan, we kind of got to take out a new mortgage every year on that pension plan, and MERS would allow us to kick that liability down the road, right? And anyone that's got a closed pension plan with MERS now knows it's a closed amortization, and so there's a date certain we will have that paid off. And so it's not a perpetual kicking of the can down the road with that millage request either. When that pension liability does fall off, that will be a fantastic year for the county. The problem is, since we've been long-term forecasting in that negative 12% year, that does move a little.
So because you've all mentioned like departments that aren't fully staffed, like the prosecutor's office. So this doesn't even account for that, right? I mean, if the budget that we're looking at is saying this is going to maintain what we have, what we have is not a fully funded department there, right?
Distinction, you're talking about budget, we're talking about forecast.
Sure.
Right? And so we're forecasting that our departments are full.
Oh, okay.
We're fully staffed.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that has actually been saving the county budget the last few years is lapsed wages, right? All of those positions that aren't currently filled are actually saving us costs in wages and benefits and helping us balance that budget, if you will. Make up for that deficit.
I just wanted to go back to 38% is the number being passed around right now. You see it on yard signs and everything. Could you walk me through that? I'm not as familiar with like working out tax base and everything. So how does that break down?
So I believe that, I know you're talking about signs that are around town that say there's a 38% increase in taxes. So if anyone pays property taxes, you are paying more than the county operating tax, right? If you live in the city or the township, you're gonna pay a township operating tax, you're gonna pay a city operating, you're gonna pay maybe some special millages for parks or police or fire or something like that. If you live in the city or township, you're also gonna pay that county operating levy. Okay? And that the county operating levy is what I believe that 38% is referencing. It's not a 38% increase of your overall tax liability because you pay more taxes than just the county operating levy. But I believe where they're coming up with that math is taking the 2.5 mil request, dividing it by the current 6.61 operating levy for the county, and that gets you real close to 38%. So I think that's where the math is coming from. But as Chairman Hope spelled out his tax bill, you don't only pay county operating. If you only paid county operating, it would be a 38% increase, okay? You see where they're little play on words, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. My taxes come to me when my rent goes up and down and everything, because I'm rent here in the city, so that's put back onto me by the landowner and everything.
And
So
it
the
would certainly
breakdown
would
of it is-
impact them.
Yeah. The kind of just following up on that, I believe this, talking about like the signs out and everything right now that are advertising about a 38% increase in taxes. As I understand it, they don't have like the labeling or anything they need for political advertising. Like I know I had emailed you ahead of time. I had a chance to look into that at all?
I did. I spoke with county clerk about that. She did let me know that, in her opinion, the signs would be illegal if they don't state who paid for the printing of those signs, right? Because they do suggest you would vote a certain way. And so county clerk doesn't police those signs. It's state of Michigan, right? Probably Bureau of Elections, I would imagine, Secretary of State. And our county clerk would need a formal complaint from a resident in order to initiate that process with the state.
And the problem with that is, by the time you get the formal complaint, you're running through the process, the election's over.
It'll be February, yeah.
Yeah.
Clarify.
Are there any other questions, comments?
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. If any of the commissioners have any additions or deletions to the agenda, please speak up now. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I move. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. All right, at this time, we're going to open up the floor to public input on agenda items. If you are here to speak about something on the agenda, you may step up to the podium. You'll be asked to state your name and your address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you are joining us by Zoom, you may use the star or the raised hand feature on your Zoom or the *9 in order to enter into the meeting. You'll be asked your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom?
No raised hands.
Okay. Are there any emails? No. Is there anyone in the public at this time that would like to come forward and speak on anything? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public input on agenda items. And we're going to move to the receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense.
Receipt of petitions and communications includes the year-end report on citizen group and complaint process.
Okay. We're going to move to the consent items. Are there any consent items that the commissioners would like to have moved off consent calendar and moved into the agenda?
No.
Okay, seeing none, Manager DeSense.
Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held January 8, 2024. Consider setting a special meeting for discussion on goals and objectives for Monday, April 1, 2024 at 6 p.m. Consider the additional allocation of $8,114 in funding from the city's HODAG funds for the Michigan State Housing Development Authority Neighborhood Enhancement Program. Consider resolutions number 1 and number 2 to commence the proceedings for special assessment, tentatively determine the necessity, and set a public hearing for February 12, 2024 regarding the necessity of Special Assessment District number 1, 2024. Consider award of contract to Coquelin Roofing for the water treatment plant re-roof project for $188,216. Consider approval of a sole source quote with American Fiberglass tank repair for repairs to the sodium hydrochloride tank and approve a budget amendment for the same for $67,000, and consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
Is there a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented?
I move
Is
that
there
we
a second?
accept.
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no.
You can object.
All right, so we're moving on to the public hearing. Tonight, we have a public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Housing Improving Local Livability, or otherwise known as CHILL, livability, grant application. Manager DeSenz.
Yeah, sure thing. So staff is applying for the grant to support the Neighborhood Enhancement Program. It would be using money from MISHDA's CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant funds. The grant would be $500,000. There is a certain amount of the grant that is allowed to go towards administrative costs, and the bulk of that grant, about $430,000 roughly, would be going towards homeowners. We'd be able to grant out $10,000 per project to each individual project, and that could go towards a number of different things to help maintain an individual's house. After holding the public hearing on the proposed project, the City Commission is asked to approve the attached resolution authorizing staff to submit the grant application and authorize the city manager and finance director to sign the required paperwork.
All right, we're going to open the public hearing. If you wish to speak on this, you may step to the podium. You'll be asked your name and address and given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you may use the raised hand feature or *9. If you're joining Zoom by phone, you'll be let into the meeting. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to speak? Okay, are there any emails? Okay. All right, at this time, we're going to close the public hearing, seeing no one coming forward, and ask the commission if they have any, anything that needs to be clarified at this point. Okay. We have any questions that need to be answered? All right.
You want a motion?
You want a motion?
Hang on a second.
All right.
I believe Chief Lobsinger, you were just setting up for the next presentation, is that correct? Okay, so you're
All right,
not part of the public hearing.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So,
I move that we authorize staff to submit the grant application, authorize city manager and finance director to sign the required paperwork.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and is there any further discussion? All right, we will take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Wingard,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman.
Yes.
Commissioner Bush,
Yes.
Commissioner Eke,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olsager,
Yes.
Mayor Perschbacher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. I'm very excited about this. We'll be able to help so many homeowners in town here with improvements. All right, we're going to move on to new business, and is this you, Doug?
Yes.
Yes, all right. The aerial ladder truck and rescue pumper truck?
Yes.
if I can, I'll go ahead and tee up the chief real quick here. So the fire department is in need of replacing 2 pieces of equipment, that being the ladder truck and the heavy rescue truck. Replacement trucks were bid out and the city received several bids for these pieces of equipment. After analyzing the bid packages, staff is recommending the purchase of 2 Pierce models to replace the current equipment. Staff is recommending that the replacement of the current rescue truck be done with a combined rescue pumper truck. Doing so eliminates the need for a separate piece of equipment and saves the city $1 million in future costs on replacing one of those pieces of equipment. With that, now I will turn it over to Fire Chief Doug Lobsinger to discuss the 2 pieces of equipment and answer any questions you may have.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here tonight. As you know, we're looking at replacing 2 pieces of equipment, and city manager kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. So. But the pieces of equipment we're replacing is our aerial ladder truck and our rescue truck. They both served our community needs for the past 26 years, and we like to try to follow the National Fire Prevention Association standards and get them replaced about every 25. Research that was done in this was pretty extensive. We spent several years looking at different manufacturers, talking to industry experts, testing equipment, analyzing different types of trucks so that we could get something that not only meets our needs today, but needs for the future. Aerial trucks, a lot of people think that they're just designed to fight high-rise buildings, fight fires in tall buildings and rescue people in tall buildings. And that is a use for them, but they're also, anytime we need an elevated water stream for a regular structure fire on a residence, single-family residence, something that can be used for. And so this is actually a picture of what we're currently looking at. That's the closest picture I could get from Pierce as to what ours will look like, but it'd be very, very, very similar to that. Our rescue pumper is a multi-purpose response vehicle. It's able to carry a vast variety of different equipment, not only equipment that would be on a regular pumper truck, like a regular engine, but what would be put on a rescue, such as the Jaws of Life, a cascade system to fill our SCBA bottles up, generators, ventilation fans, scene lighting, a lot of support equipment that's needed on different scenes. And we did present, like the city manager said, we prepared RFPs, sent them out to 8 manufacturers. We do have 2 vendors that bid on this. Halt Fire, a Pierce truck manufacturer, for 52 years was rated highest for both trucks. Halt Fire does offer discounts for prepayment and multi-truck purchases. Pierce is a leader in fire truck manufacturing. Pierce itself has been in business for 85 years. Mount Pleasant does have a very strong relationship working with Holt and Pierce. We currently have 3 Pierce trucks. We've been very impressed with their workmanship and their outstanding customer service. The Pierce trucks possess the latest advancements in ladder and pump technology, handling, stability, improvement, safety features, and increased operational efficiencies. As we talked earlier, the Pierce Pumper Rescue is a dual-purpose truck. Enables us to reduce our fleet, which will enhance our on-scene capabilities. What we're basically saying is what maybe it would take 2 people to drive 2 pieces of equipment there, we're doing with 1 now. There's a substantial savings for future truck maintenance, repairs, and replacement cost. That's a big savings for us. And here you can see the cost of each of these trucks. You can see the discounts that are given to us if we could go through the prepayment. And see what we're actually looking at, and what we're asking here tonight is for roughly $2.7 million. In addition to the prepayment discounts, our department has received $440,000 from the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribes 2% revenue sharing. Halt Fire's $364,000 discount for prepaying and buying 2 trucks. That brings us down to about the remaining balance of $2.3 million, which we have in our fire reserve account, which we have on hand. Lead time is 3 to 4 years from the time we order it before we'll take possession of the trucks. Current trucks will be sold once the new ones are in service. It's kind of difficult to give you an estimate on what those are due to their age and the unavailability of parts and the problems that we have with getting parts for them. So what we're asking tonight is for the City Commission to approve the purchase of a Pierce aerial ladder truck and a Pierce Rescue Pumper truck through Halt Fire and prepay the $2,738,675 and to authorize the mayor to sign the purchase agreements.
Yes.
Awesome that you have that money in the fire truck reserve account. Can I just ask how much else, like what would be left?
Not very much.
Okay.
About $500,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it might be written as a mistake in our agenda that it mentions having a Halt product, but we're not buying a Halt product.
Halt is the local manufacturer and the dealer for Pierce, is what it is.
Okay.
That's not.
They're like the salesman of it. They're like the car dealership for Chevy,
Okay,
so to speak.
now it makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
What's going on?
I had a couple questions. We're getting 2 trucks to replace 1 truck. Are we gonna have the space to house the trucks, or are we gonna get a request a couple months from now to build out space?
No, we do have the space because we're looking at if downsizing to some degree, so we'll be able to
Gotcha.
have that equipment.
And then buying 2 trucks at the same time, is there, looking down the road in 25 years when we need to replace these ones, is there been any thought about how we could stagger the replacements so it's not buying 2 trucks at the same time? That's a very out there question, but.
Those are always discussions, and they're very big, heavy dollar acquisitions. So we try to get all the life out of them that we can. But we have in the past sold engines at 10 years due to the equity that we have in them. Those are things that we can look at, but those are peanut shell games that we have to continue to look at and see where our fund is, number one. Do we have the money in it to purchase it? And how much equity, those are things that we'd have to play with at the time.
Gotcha. Well,
So I just want to be clear. We've been fiscally responsible to save money to buy things that the fire department needs. Now the fire department needs to buy them. And so here we are with approving this, right?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I think we make a motion to approve that the fire department purchase the equipment and the mayor sign off on it.
seconded.
Oh, wow.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 15, to consider professional services agreement. Manager DeSense.
City has been working with Mannix Smith Group as a consultant to advise and complete work related to the city's old landfill site. Last year, the landfill underwent a number of tests at the request of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. After the 2023 test results were reviewed by EGLE, or the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, the city was asked to develop a plan for future action. Staff consulted with Mannix Smith Group, who is recommending further testing at the site in 2024 prior to considering any potential remedial action. Mannix Smith Group is proposing a quarterly testing program that they will undertake at a cost of $67,000 for 2024. Representatives from Mannix Smith Group are here this evening to present this proposal and to answer any questions that you may have. So we do have them. There we go, on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. And thank you, commissioners. My name is Kevin Lund. I'm with Mannix Smith. I am a licensed professional engineer and a professional geologist. And we prepared a little PowerPoint for you with some background on the landfill. I believe that was included in your packet. But we just wanted to go over a little bit of the history and the purpose and reasoning why the sampling is necessary. So the landfill was constructed and utilized in the 50s, in the 50s through the 70s. During that time frame, there was really no process or licensing for how a landfill would be constructed and operated. There's no requirements for liners or covers as there are in the current landfills today. And the city's not unique in having to deal with a landfill of this nature. Nearly all the communities in Michigan have something like the landfill that we're talking about today. And so it's a little bit about the construction.
as I said, we don't have any covers or caps. We don't manage any leachate. So essentially, we're trying to manage the risk that the landfill poses to the river by having a 2-foot cover to limit water infiltration into the waste. I want to explain a little bit about the waste. Because of the operations of this landfill in the 50s, most of what was brought here was ash. In communities, a homeowner would have a burn barrel, and the barrel would the city would go around with the truck and pick up the ash from the burn barrel, and that was brought to the landfill. And then at some point, landfills opened up to the communities bringing in citizens bringing in some waste, and it was burned. So for the most part, we have some material that's gone through some degradation with burning. So that's primarily the material that we're looking at. The location of the landfill was likely selected based on a low area, very difficult to develop land, and so it found its place, near the river here. We're looking at monitoring the groundwater primarily for this proposal that we've submitted to the city. And the groundwater comes in contact with waste at the landfill and is naturally migrating towards the river. So we've got a number of monitoring wells around the landfill that we'll be monitoring over the next year, next 4 quarters, primarily for us to have a better understanding to provide the city with a plan for the next steps and what those might look like. How to manage the water, how to treat, what kind of treatment we might apply if that's becomes part of our future planning. And so in the documents we provided, the master we provided, we wanted to share with you some of the data that's been submitted to the to Eagle. We're looking at a few contaminants, mostly metals, but one contaminant that you might have heard of most recently in the news is PFAS. Yes. A compound that's found all over the state, and oftentimes associated with landfills. One of the things that we want to try to do is better understand the concentrations, the fate and transport of where it comes to be found near the river and how it might be migrating into the river. And that's what we hope to accomplish with this study. Now, we work off of what we call a conceptual site model. And that's kind of our understanding of how groundwater might move through the surface, and we're really comparing the data to what the state calls the groundwater surface water interface, and that's the pathway where groundwater is moving through the landfill and then migrating and ultimately finding its way into the river. And then once it finds its way into the river, now it becomes, has an opportunity to interact with fish and other biota in the river, or migrate downriver to a water intake. So one of the things that we've done here for working with the city is to determine if the aquifer under the landfill could potentially impact drinking water wells. Some of the work that we've done already provides some information for Eagle review, and we believe demonstrates that the landfill is not impacting drinking water wells in the area, and that the only potential pathway that we should be that we're looking for and looking at more closely is this groundwater surface water pathway. The primary goals of the groundwater monitoring plan are compliance with the state regulation identified as Part 201, And then by collecting this extra data, allows us to provide the city with the basis for a feasibility analysis to evaluate potential remedial alternatives. With that, it's a quick overview. Was wondering if there was any questions.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Wingard.
Thank you. So just based off of, again, our conversation, there was the basic surface level contaminants like metals and PFAS that, again, at the surface level, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. I know the study that we're undertaking would guide us into more significant remediation possibilities. Is there any kind of less invasive possibilities we could explore or anything? I've read about phytoremediation, which is the actual specific plants that you plant in an area such as this to help combat surface spread and everything. I don't often get to speak to experts on the topic, so if you could comment on that potentially, or if you have any thoughts.
Sure. Well, I just want to say that the work that people are doing right now with PFAS is still evolving and emerging in finding technologies that might be most appropriate. And in other projects that I'm working on across the state with dealing with this compound, we're taking our time with it because every day somebody is finding a new approach that might be more cost efficient than what we might have been considering yesterday. So it's an opportunity, in the next year to gather additional data to try to find the most efficient way to approach this. The regulatory processes, we are allowed multiple options to evaluate and proceed with and to apply here. So it might be that the cost, like you mentioned, phyto, might be an appropriate approach. And on another project, I was working with Phragmites as a phyto tool. And Phragmites are a very aggressive plant and can grow in, all over Michigan. But they're not highly desirable. They're an invasive plant. But they do have shown some possibilities as a treatment process.
Commissioner Ege.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious, my curiosity has to do with the degree of, if any, of contaminants in terms of PFAS we have. I also understand that there are no, maybe incorrectly, but that there are no state regulatory guidelines for addressing contamination or what to do about that, at least in terms of what I'm hearing, reading.
In my past life as a state regulator, I'd agree with you on your analysis that there's no immediate obligations, but the levels that we're looking at, at the landfill are quite low, and we're trying to better understand where those contaminants are, and then come up with a strategy for the city to get in compliance with the groundwater surface water discharge. Because of the work that we've done with the drinking water side, we believe that there's no expectation or no drinking water sources that are threatened by the landfill. And we've submitted a report to Eagle, and it's in the review. But it's the data was pretty clear. There was non-detect, and the data supports that the landfill is not potentially any sort of a source for the PFAS issue.
Okay, I'm asking for clarity again. When you say, I always worry when people qualify things and say to me, not low or not big. So what does that mean? So you're saying that we shouldn't worry right now? There's no need to worry, or what does that really mean?
I guess I'm not trying to say don't worry. I think we're trying to gather data to understand.
Okay,
You know, the data that we have right now suggests that there is some PFAS levels. What we might see as we gather data over the 4 seasons is there might be some variability in those levels. We might see concentrations go down, or we might see concentrations go up. And you know, it's right now at this stage we're just trying to understand. So there's no it's part of the process to inform you on what to do next, is just gather the data.
okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I move to approve a professional services agreement with Manic Smith Group for $67,000 for quarterly monitoring and testing of up to 18 wells at the former city landfill site, and authorize staff to sign the agreement.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to consider the 2024 food assistance fees for the farmers market. And I'm just going to throw in there that we're going to do peak summer camp proposal changes as well.
That sounds fantastic. Now for the fun stuff, right? So basically, this is to bring to your attention what we currently are doing and ask for direction on how to move forward. The quick version is we essentially have 5 services that we provide for the public for our farmers market. Those 5 services are SNAP, Double Up Food Bucks, WIC, Senior Project Fresh, and we have a credit debit program. Due to restrictions on the programs WIC and Senior Project Fresh, we're not allowed to charge any fees to recoup any of the costs that it is for us to run the program. Historically, we have charged a 5% fee for SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks, and we charge an 8% fee for credit and debit. So any transactions that we have throughout the farmers market, we charge those fees to our vendor. So essentially, whatever they have coming in, they get paid out less, either the 5% or the 8%, depending on what they utilize throughout our farmers market. Essentially, right now, and based on last year's numbers, if we eliminated those fees, it would cost us around $2,000, and that's based on last year's numbers. So obviously those fluctuate based on who uses the program, how often. MIFMA, the Michigan Farmers Market Association, they do recommend that we charge a fee, but it's not necessary. So it's kind of up to the commission on how they would like to move forward. For our operation, it would be ideal if they were all the same, or not all the same number, but the 3 programs that we do charge for were the same percentage, just for calculation purposes. It's a lot of work for Carol. And I do have Carol Moody here, who is our farmers market director. And she's able to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer. So I am looking for guidance at this point.
No, these, you're talking about when they come to the Parks and Rec table and they buy the tokens. And that's what we're charging, is for the purchase of the tokens. Even though some of the vendors do have the ability to use the cards
At their own, yes.
days. Okay. Commissioner Bush.
So, I mean, $2,000 isn't nothing, but it's $2,000. And my understanding was, especially that 8% fee, you know, part of that was to cover administrative costs. So theoretically, if we get rid of the fee, are we going to get rid of some of this cost and make less work for Carol?
It would essentially make less work for Carol,
Yeah.
but there still is a cost. So it would just be less revenue coming in. That's,
Yeah, it seems negligible, and I'll just tell you the amount of resistance, like I mean, I had a personal experience, that's why I started looking into this last year, and I was shocked, and so many of the vendors just flat out were like, oh, look, I'm sorry, I'll lose money if I do this. And I would recommend, and especially with the way things are turning, like you can take, vendors have their own ability. Carol, you encourage some of the vendors to place out on their, tables, we take these forms of payment, maybe make that kind of thing more prominent. Maybe here's my Venmo, here's my Cash App, because almost everybody except for the Amish take it. So actually, I think they do too. I was just trying to be funny, but
No,
yeah.
there's several that don't.
Yeah.
That don't take it, and so for those that don't do it on their own, this does
Right.
offer them an opportunity to.
But I just think that, I mean, I hate to lose revenue, but it's $2,000, and I think the goodwill towards your vendors to just make everything easier for them, less work for Carol, seems like a win-win to me.
I would agree with that. Because don't we want more vendors
yes.
all the time, right? Yeah. And
Less
I mean,
hassle.
Yeah, less hassle for them, and they can get what they need.
You're not gonna suffer that much, because you lost $2,000.
Are they charged like a booth rental fee? So there's a little income coming in.
Okay.
Again, could kind of just getting an idea of the budget for the farmer's market. Is it, if we told you we're eliminating fees and that's no longer a source of income as people running running the farmer's market, is it going to be a concern of, is it going to be solvent, or are we going to have to take funds from other part of the budget?
I don't think we're talking about we're not removing the rental fees for the farmers.
No, not the
market.
rental fees,
Okay.
but these charges on the cards
okay.
and everything. It makes up a part of the budget, but I can't imagine it would be would it be a
We do not break even on this
even with
venture, even with that.
Okay.
But if you eliminate that and you have more vendors, chances are that, maybe you get a little bit more revenue somehow. Because the vendors do pay for renting the space, right? Is that,
At the same time, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but at the same time, if the more vendors could make that number go up too. So I wouldn't really correlate the numbers of revenue or for revenue based on
the charge
vendor
itself.
fees. Yeah.
Well, and the actually an accompanying question is, I go to the farmer's market and I think that pavilion is generally at full capacity. So let's say hypothetically you have more vendors. Do you have a plan to, expand?
We already have vendors outside the pavilion, so we can,
That's true too,
we can continue to,
up to the street.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, from that aspect of it, I really don't.
Yeah, well.
Obviously, certain vendors wouldn't like their position, but at the same time, they get what they get.
But I do think that part of what's happening, in a way, you do recognize the complexity or, the challenge in terms of, this varied, treatment of, of this particular fee, which makes it cumbersome, for you, or at least, a headache to maintain. On the other hand, you could just simply have a flat fee if you wanted to, or just simply eliminate it and say this is a goodwill gesture towards, the farmers who come to the farmers market. So last question, what obtains in other places? Midland has farmers market. What do?
They do not charge.
Then, what happens in East Lansing? I know East Lansing has farmers market.
I'm not sure on there.
Okay, so
Some of each throughout the state.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking that, it's a goodwill gesture, right? So let's, we can just let it go.
Well, I think I didn't know it was 8%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I own a business and we absorb the cost. I mean, it's the cost of doing business, right? And so I think especially at 8%, man, if we could charge 8% for taking a credit card, we'd be making a lot more money, right? And so, I mean, if that means upping the vendor $5 or something to say we can't lose money, I mean, but I think 8% especially if somebody's spending, a couple $100. I mean, I don't know what you spend at a farmer's market, but I mean, that adds up quick.
Well, that's what happened is I didn't have any cash and I just wanted $100 in tokens because I spent at least that much.
That would be $8.
Well,
if
so
you
what
used a
happened?
debit or
So what
credit
happened
card.
is so then I pay for something that's $10, and he loses 8% of that. The farmer loses 8% of that when they turn that in.
Sure.
And so I refused to spend the money until I got it resolved. And then the last day of the market, I was just.
You actually, those tokens don't expire, do they?
I guess still got one sitting in my car. I just found it.
I mean, I have quite a few of them, but the reality is that percentage is even higher than the state, tax, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see where they're looking at it and saying, this is egregious. Wait a minute, we're not making that much money, and you're asking us to pay something that's much higher than the state tax. And oh, by the way, this is food. Should you be charging, additionally for this? Anyway, I am just sort of, I'm not a farmer, and I'm not selling there, but I can hear, that kind of,
Well, they asked for guidance and you're giving it to them.
So what else do you need from us then?
I would say just, I do support eliminating.
If we
it,
could
just
get a
eliminate it.
motion as to what you would recommend
I
moving forward.
move that we recommend just simply eliminating this.
Second.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
You're happy.
Thank
you don't
you.
have to deal with it.
All right, now we're moving on to the summer peak camp proposal changes.
So for this proposal, essentially what we're trying to do is extend our summer camp program from 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And essentially, by doing that, we would eliminate our individual weekly day camp. By doing this also, for those roughly 3 weeks that we have the individual day camps, we'll have 100 kids only available because we can only use like the gymnasium and the cafeteria, so we're limited on the amount of kids. After discussion with the school district, if we go to a strict 6 to 8 week, we bump those extra 2 weeks up to 375 kids. So we will have the ability to have our entire camp program for that entire 8 weeks. So we would serve essentially 275 more kids for those 2 weeks. We still would not have camp the week before camp starts, which is the week between when school ends and when we start. And we wouldn't have camp for the week between when we end and school starts. And we also would not have peak, or for this year, obviously it varies on when 4th of July hits. But this week we wouldn't have it Thursday and Friday of the week of 4th of July. The intent would be to just utilize roughly our fee schedule and just roll over those 2 weeks by pulling out what we charge for the 6 week program, divide that by 6 and then times it by 8.
4th of July is a Thursday.
What's that?
4th of July is a Thursday.
Yep, so we wouldn't have camp on that Thursday of 4th of July or the Friday following.
Commissioner Bush.
I feel like an 8-week summer employment would be more appealing to staff. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and I have Mary LaChance here.
Okay.
She runs our summer camp, so
Okay.
she can.
Yeah, and this has been, for the past 2 years, the start of school has been shifting. When I first started, it was in September. And so there was essentially 4 weeks in August that there wasn't peak 6 week, that we were trying to fill the gaps. And now with it starting 2 weeks earlier, I approached Phil that if we extended our camp, our big camp by 2 weeks, we would have no wait list for the day camps. and fill those gaps. And so I talked to the schools to see if we could use more space, and they said that we could as well.
Yeah, I guess I meant also for hiring staff.
Oh, yeah, it'll be great. It'll be
Yeah.
consistent, and last year,
Yeah.
I had staff that wanted to work, but I couldn't give people full-time hours.
Right,
so.
exactly, that sort of thing, yeah.
So what dates are you looking at, really?
For our summer program?
Yeah, start to end. So time frame.
So we would start our program on June 17th and go through August 9th.
That's good.
And then this would also make it so our registration could all be online. I don't know if you guys have heard the horror stories about our opening day here, but there's 300 people out the line because there's always a wait list for just our day camp weeks.
In person?
Yes, it is. It's really difficult. And that's just because those day camp weeks are so limited for us. And I've never had a wait list for 6 weeks. And so with this, I truly think that I can eliminate the wait list for the whole summer. And then everyone can do it online, and it won't be a mad rush to get in. And if someone needs help, they can come in. I can spend time with them actually, and they'll streamline that process.
And we have a lot of parents too.
So will this help with some of the budget stuff that we've talked about in the past, or?
No, you still have that
It'll
gap.
be about the same, unfortunately, but we'll service the community better.
Sure.
We're not going to lose money doing this.
But the one thing that you will see is essentially we're rolling in that day camp money into the full summer camp program. And so we will be utilizing a little bit more because we'll have a lot more staffing, but we'll also make up for a little bit with revenue based on attendance.
Yeah.
I think Brian got my question. I know that's in the forefront whenever we think about peak is just budgeting for long-term, but I think it sounds like a great change in everything. I don't have kids of my own, but one day we'll work towards that. Anyway.
My only concern with the 8 weeks is from a summer program that I'm involved with. I typically wouldn't get very many kids that first week in June because that's typically when a lot of the churches have their Bibles.
Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School.
Yeah, we run into that sometimes, but I found over the years, people really utilize peak as childcare. It's a lot of working parents, and Vacation Bible School is typically in the morning hours, and then they bring them to peak afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And then I've been working with Maury Courts because they have their sports camps when we aren't in session. And so I worked with Tracy Woodbury, and they're going to offer those camps those 2 weeks that we're not having peak. So at least we'll have an option for families too.
Good. Sounds good.
The one thing I would ask, I guess, about this is that going from a 6-week to an 8-week program does increase, the cost does increase. Of course, those extra 2 weeks, you'd have to find childcare for that 2 weeks. But if you could report back to us, I guess, next year, if there's any kind of like gap in like people who couldn't afford to carry on with the program because of that, or if like the day camp options were like significant to any individuals or anything, if you could kind of just like try and take that feedback out of everything. So if we need to make any additional changes later on.
And this past year, DHS services have increased their income limit for families. And we're a licensed childcare facility at all of our sites. And we've really been trying to push that out to families. And a lot more families qualify for that than they realize. And that is free of charge for them. The state pays us. And so on our registration form this year, we're working on how to word that. And so I will be able to flag those families are eligible. And I think a lot of people think working with the state can be difficult, but this part's actually quite simple and we could help them. And so I will be able to flag those families and say, here's the paperwork, just turn it in and I can do the rest for you. Because right now it's based on household size. And so a family of 2, so like say a mom and a single child, if she makes 40,000 or under, would qualify for free childcare.
Wow.
Yes, and so it increases with the household size. And the states really listened to childcare providers and families and made it. So I think a lot of our families that qualify for a scholarship actually qualify for DHS. So if they're struggling for our scholarship rate, which is quite affordable, they might actually be able to come free of charge, and we get paid a lot more than our scholarship rate. We actually get paid more than our regular rate for DHS kids.
Gotcha.
So it's a win-win.
Oh, excellent.
Are there any other questions?
No, this is it.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the proposal to expand, to move peak from 6 to 8 weeks.
Second.
And an amendment to that, and just continue the day camp program as part of that.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Okay.
Good
Motion carries.
job, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to the appointments of city officials. Aaron?
In your city commission packet, we do have just a very brief listing of the city officials that are on certain boards and commissions. And so this is just seeking to reappoint all of those individuals for 2024.
Okay.
All right, do we vote on that? Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies. Nope, I have been corrected. The mayor actually makes that appointment.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay, so I will appoint all of the city officials that you have recommended on the city boards and commissions.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to the appointment of city commissioners to city standing and special committees.
Okay.
I emailed out the list to everybody. I'm going to go through and read them. For the Appointments Committee, we have Brian Chapman as the chair, Mary Alsager, and Grace Rowlands. The CM Crew is Liz Bush. The Charter Committee is Amy Perschbacher as chair, Boomer Wingard, and Grace Rowlands. The Council of Governments is Amy Perschbacher. Intergovernmental Liaison, which is always the mayor and vice mayor, is myself and Mary Alsager. The International Relations Sister City Council is Liz Bush and Maureen Eke. Mount Pleasant Area Diversity Council, Maureen Eke. Property Management, Mary Alsager as chair, Boomer Wingard and Amy Perschbacher. Audit Committee, Amy Perschbacher, Brian Chapman, and Maureen Eke. City CMU Student Committee, Brian Chapman and Liz Bush. Economic Development Corporation Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is Amy Perschbacher and Boomer Wingard. Principal Shopping District Board is Brian Chapman, and the Tax Increment Finance Authority is Amy Perschbacher.
Could you do that again, please?
No.
I mean, you did some speed reading. Listen.
I emailed it to
Listen,
you.
I looked at it, I
It is in the
forgot.
packet.
All right, thank you. I mean, you know what?
I have made the
I
appointments.
read it and
Okay.
I'm not remembering, so I just wanted to hear it. I'm glad I'll go back and look
All
at
right.
it, so.
All right, so I've made those. I've
my
made those.
gosh, I
I'm
wanted
going
to
to
hear it.
consider the appointment of the city commissioners to the city boards and commissions. Anybody would like to make a motion of that?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
Can I step away from one? I'm just pulling your leg.
oh, that's the same, no, it's almost 10 o'clock.
I looked at her.
Did you need a second? Is it?
I'll second, I will second.
Mary seconded. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're going to move on to announcements on city-related issues and new business. This is where the city commission can bring forward information that they know of the community or bring to the attention of the staff some information. When we bring staff information, one thing that has been asked of me is that if somebody says, I'd like this looked into, we need to have more of a consensus on the board on the commission of whether or not that would be something we'd like to push forward. Are there any announcements by the city commission at this time?
I just wanted to remind everybody that you can enroll in the Citizens Academy program for the city of Mount Pleasant. Deadline to apply is February 5th. Applications are open to anyone who lives, works, or owns property within city limits. You can find the relevant information online. Very good program. Highly encourage you to participate if you haven't. I'll be participating this year. Next is just reminding my fellow commissioners and some of the other staff, you all got invitations for the Gracia Isabella Technical Education Center's open house occurring on February 1st from 5:30 to 7:30. It is at Mount Pleasant High School. I believe you go in through the southeast entrance, if you know where that is. Yes, thank you. It's a great opportunity. I went last year and you can really see just a lot of demonstrations. The students do excellent work and I encourage you to attend. Following up on something that Aaron had mentioned about looking for students to fulfill some positions, I know that May 3rd, they will be hosting their career fair. And so they would probably appreciate some outreach. We could host a table and any relevant departments could probably reach out on that stage. So thank you.
I am involved in a program that's giving free tax service to county residents. It's the ARP tax service. It's at the Commission on Aging, and you can call the Commission on Aging to get an appointment.
Nice. Anyone else? All right, we're going to move on to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. If you would like to speak on the agenda or you have items that you'd like to bring forward, you may step to the podium. You'll be asked to state your name and your address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature or *9. If you're joining Zoom by phone, you'll be let into the meeting. You'll be asked your name and your address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to come forward and speak at this time? Is there anyone on Zoom? Are there any emails? All right, not seeing any public comment. We're going to close public comment. I need to know if the commission would like to go right into the work session or if we'd like to take a break.
Could we have a 5-minute break? Or 2 minutes, 2 minutes?
Actually, I was going to grant you 7 minutes because nobody can do the 5 minute.
All right.
All right, so we're going to go on a 7-minute break. We will be back at 3 after.
We knew it was going to be a long meeting with all these presentations.
I know this might be the longest one we've ever run.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, it's fine. Right, warming up.
shake up a little bit. Yeah, Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Yeah, keep that, and then you can, it's again. Yeah, any relationship with the city. Yeah, at all. Yeah, well, I was looking at it's gonna be upper.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's the draw. And you also found your safe.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
A football game, or if it was just like.
Vice Mayor.
I would like to know, because of the latest of so this is not the
Longest meeting I have ever been in. I would like to know if we would like to forego the work session
Yeah.
and move into closed session. Because I
Yes,
do want
please.
the closed session.
Yes.
So can I have a motion?
I move that we skip that we forego the work session for this time and go into a closed session.
Okay, can you read the closed session?
What?
What it says?
We're going into a closed session to consider pursuant to subsection 8A of the Open Meetings Act to consider a periodic personnel evaluation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, we gotta do a roll call.
Oh, yeah.
Roll call?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Bush,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Ake,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wingard,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Alsager,
Yes.
Mayor Perschbacher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, so we're going to wait a couple
someone else
minutes because they have to turn off the recording. Yep, and we have Grace Rollins' aide is back there. Can she still be there, or does she have to leave? Okay, so, yeah, for her to sit,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
closed session.
For the sake of the minutes, what is meant by forego?
Push it out.
Skip.
We're
Yeah,
postponing
we
it.
skip it, yeah.
We're postponing it.
Thank you, Heather.
Sorry.
Now it's